Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the ChazmaN podcast. Forgive me if we're a little bit rusty. When was the last time we had a chat? I think it was Fallout, right?
Man, it's been forever. I actually forgot what the
I think,
podcast intro song even sounded like.
yeah, I think Fallout was the last time we had a chat on the podcast. But don't fret, we have like quite a few topics that I'm pretty excited to get into. A couple other
Few.
things is,
Quite a few.
well, no, I still want to talk a little bit of Halo with you, but that's if you're down. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah.
I know you're kind of wavering on that, right?
That means I actually have to finish watching the show, which, oh man, I don't know if I have it in me. We'll see. We'll see. Let's see how this conversation goes first, and maybe we can motivate each other to
At least
finish
you
up
only
that
have one
season 2.
season, hopefully, unless Netflix
I've
steps
forgotten
in
a
or
lot of
something.
it. Oh man. Either way, that's for
Yeah.
another chat.
Hey, Skylar Twilight's back in chat. They said howdy, howdy. What's up, Skylar? Good to see you. But yeah, so as of today, we got a couple things we're going to talk about. Something Phoenix actually got me to jump into was the Acolyte, and then Disney's the Acolyte, and then another thing that, of course, I feel like is kind of on the everyone's tip of the tongue is kind of Deadpool. I know I've been kind of scrummaging through Instagram, and all you see is lots of spoilers, kind of
Yeah.
floating around. So I think, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? Phoenix had mentioned that he wanted to kind of start things off talking a little bit of Acolyte. Am I correct?
Yeah, we can start there. I guess we're a little late to the game now. Show's been over
Yeah.
for
How long's it been out?
what, 2-3 weeks? It came out, probably about 2 months
I
ago,
think it
maybe
was
for
going.
what, 8 episodes?
It was going on right when I was like on vacation, which that was what, like 3 weeks ago. I think at this point, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say it came out about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And I went to jumped into it. I'd kind of been on a bit of a Star Wars kick as of late, ever since we saw what was it, Episode 1, because they brought that back in theaters for the
Mm-hmm.
25th anniversary.
That's
So kind of
right.
that spurred me into hopping back into everything, because that was in, oh, I'm not gonna get the date right, April, May. It was kind of like early summer that hit theaters. Then I went ahead and watched episode 2, episode 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I kind of stopped there because I didn't want to get into the Disney movies. But
Mm-hmm.
then I started picking up on the shows. I watched a little bit of Ahsoka, which, oh
I
man,
heard it was not
that's a show.
terribly well received.
Yeah, that can be a different conversation, but I did not enjoy most of that. Kind of skipped through a lot of it. And I had seen most of the other ones already. I'd watched Obi-Wan. I'd seen I think all the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian.
I had skipped through Book of Boba Fett a little. That one didn't grab me too much, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in a mood for this. Like, the
I
premise of this one actually seemed interesting. It was different. It was a different time period than we've spent a whole lot of time with in
Mhm.
Star Wars. Kind of that, what is it called? The High Republic
I
timeline or era, where it's
believe
kind of like right before the
so.
prequel stuff.
Yeah, I believe there's
Yeah.
some weird thing I think I was reading where like technically some of the villains in this are like the ones that we know in the original series are like either non-existent or like ridiculously young at this time point in the
Yeah, it's
series.
kind of like that precursor for everything in Episode 1 and beyond. So, I don't know, it was an interesting kind of time period. Thought that might be fun. I didn't watch it week to week with it. I kind of was like, you know what, I'm going to let this whole thing kind of wrap up in Disney Plus and just kind of binge it all at once. And because of that, I, of course, kind of, picked up on a lot of little like controversies that would pop up, because this was a hot button topic, I think, for a lot of people for various reasons. I
Can
tried
I
my best to avoid some of those spoilers, but oh, go ahead.
just real quick, just to throw in something since you brought it up. That was one big problem I had with this show, and I don't know if Disney does this a lot with their other. I haven't watched a lot of their other Star Wars television shows, but like
Mhm.
this show was so bad with cliffhangers. Literally, like you would go certain episodes where like there's a lot of dialogue, couple things happen, and then literally at the end of the episode, it's like major reveal. Oh, the episode's over.
Mm.
Almost every episode ended
You
like
know,
that, and it was pretty bad. I
that
thought.
may be true. I didn't feel that as much, probably because I binged it. And to be fair, I was kind of like, I was doing other things while watching it, which is probably not the best way to kind of watch a show like this.
Doing the
But
laundry.
there were points where I didn't realize like one episode had moved on to the other one. It just kind of
Mm-hmm.
blended together. So I'm not saying you're wrong. It definitely had those moments that built up to like, oh, I wonder who's that guy. What are they doing over here? And then it cut to credits. So I think that's a pretty common thing. They always kind of want to leave that lure hanging to pull you into the next episode. And the way this ended, the way they're trying to pull you into the next season with that big cliffhanger for season 1. But we can get to that in a bit. Anyways, I wanted to go into this pretty positively. I don't know about you, but I think I've gotten a little fatigued of hating every show that I watch. I don't know if you felt the same way. Um, so I really wanted to come at this with a fairly optimistic lens, even with the controversy and kind of hot button stuff that was out there. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of wanted to, take it for what it was, try to enjoy what I could. By no means that doesn't mean you shouldn't be critical about a show. I mean, of course, if there are issues, it's productive to call them out and try to see when writing could be better and things may feel contrived. But I think coming at it from an initial stance of man, this is gonna suck, and that kind of paints the whole picture before you even get into it
Mm-hmm.
is at least a perspective I want to move away from. So
So
I thought the show. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna. I don't want to tell you if you're. I was just gonna say like the one thing I really appreciate about this show is at the bare minimum, I loved the idea of it, like what they were trying to go for, and I, I feel like the way they kind of approach some of the story and what they were trying to do with this whole
Mm.
again, if it's not obvious to anyone, but many spoilers are going to be here for the Acolyte and for Deadpool and Wolverine. So huge spoilers if you haven't seen any of those. But uh, uh, like I really enjoyed where they were going about with the whole just the kind of connective tissues that it was going to have to things like Anakin and the original,
Yeah.
just the birth of the chosen one or whatever their kind of plot line that they had with some of the more like modern George Lucas stuff he had, with some of the Star Wars stuff. But sorry, I didn't give
Yeah,
you
I
this
agree. The
commercial.
premise of this show, I think, had a lot of promise. And I think there's definitely some wasted potential that I want to talk about towards the end. But this is an interesting time period. As I said, we don't have a lot, at least in kind of mainstream Star Wars canon, that really dives into this. I know there's I don't even know how much extended universe stuff is even canon anymore. I know Disney threw a lot of it out, so knowing what's accurate at this early time period is kind of rough. But yeah, it's neat that pre-episode one, the stuff kind of leading into the potential, Darth Plagueis emergence, I thought is interesting because, as you said, that kind of leads down to the whole thing of how he figures out how to manipulate the Force to
Mm-hmm.
cause life, which is what spurs Anakin. And there's a story thread there that I think is interesting.
And
Now,
then the
did
whole
they
idea of
land
the
it
what
super
was it called?
well?
Divergence is what Soul was
The
calling it.
Virgins, I think is what it
Vergence,
was. Yeah.
like a concentrated area of the Force that has the power to bring life. Like there's cool ideas here.
Yeah, and that's probably a good place to start, to kind of once again give this show, I think, the most optimistic kind of viewpoint we can. Let's start pros for a minute. So I did like the premise, as we said, that lead up to once again Plagueis and the whole manipulation of the life force. I thought some of the fights were pretty good. I know a lot of people were kind of critiquing like the hand-to-hand combat
I was gonna
stuff,
say
which
there's like
fair
martial
enough,
arts
but
here.
yeah, which I think some people were looking at that it was, I don't know, didn't flow well, wasn't choreographed well. But the lightsaber stuff I actually thought was pretty good. The fight in the jungle,
Great.
that was pretty
The
brutal.
stranger or whatever he
There's
starts out as called.
Yeah, so there's some moments in that were some of the most intense like moments, especially like as far as like death scenes that I've seen in a Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars, really anything in quite a while. So the part where he grabs the one chick and tick, 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 just kind of try
That's
stabs her in the chest.
that's the first child killed in the Star Wars world since our boy Annie.
I know, gotta bring back them younglings. Then he snapped the one dude's neck. Like there were some pretty vicious moments there. So that definitely was an interesting, not interesting, but a cool way to kind of set up those fight scenes and give them a little more
He
veracity.
skewered two Jedi. He stabbed one and
Yeah,
then pulled force pulled one, the other one into his lightsaber. Like there
right
was
into the
some,
other one.
yeah, some crazy
So,
stuff
like
in
those
there.
were good. The last one was Soul and the stranger slash what was his name? Like Qatar.
Kamir,
Remember?
Kamir.
Kamil? Yeah. Um, So, I mean, I thought a lot of that was good, the lightsaber stuff. And the other combat, once again, you could argue that. But even like the opening scene that you had kind of frozen there with Endara and at that point the unknown assassin, like that wasn't too bad. It maybe was a little contrived in spots, but it had some cool moments like where she threw the knife down to distract her, and that's when she kind of went for her kill there
Mm,
at the end. Do you remember that?
yeah.
So
Well,
I
she
don't know.
threw
I
the
liked a
knife
lot of
because
the fight stuff.
yeah, she threw the knife at one of the barkeep or whoever was in control of the place. It was kind of a neat reveal too, like kind of seeing that like the barkeep's kid was like underneath the bar too.
Hmm.
So I don't know, kind of showing a little bit of the wavering, I don't know, I guess,
Are you
emotions
talking about
within the
when
character.
she didn't actually follow through with killing them to kind of let the barkeep and her kid, his kid get by? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot I want to say about how those characters and their motivations for morality kind of shift, but that'll get to the con, so I want to hold off
That
on that.
happens a
Um,
lot throughout the series. Like, that's why
yeah,
yeah, I feel like me personally, the writing is probably the weakest point of this entire
sure.
season one, or I'm assuming there's gonna be a
Yeah,
season two. That's why,
they want a season
yeah,
two,
you know they
but
have to.
I'm I'll do it. Let's not go too far down
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
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 a couple
yeah.
more pros I want to mention before we start really digging in.
Hmm.
I like when they explore the negative or the faults of the Jedi Order. Like the prequels kind of touched on that. Like, the Jedi Order isn't this perfect, altruistic, organization. They've got their issues. And this one really kind of, I think, demonstrates that. You kind of see like the secrets that were being hidden, some of the motivations for why they did certain things, which some of it's a little contrived, I think, when we get into the
Hmm.
writing aspect of it, but I like the idea of it isn't just, Jedi all good, Sith all evil. I mean, I know that's probably where Lucas wanted to kind of lead it, where it's very much, black and white in a lot of ways, but I
But
like that gray area they kind of painted in there. And to be fair, Lucas brought that up when he started looking at the prequels, right? That was a seed he kind of planted that
yeah,
this really kind of expands upon.
the difference though is I feel like with the way George was approaching it, he was making it seem as though they were more just unaware of the decisions they were making that were kind of messing them up versus like in this modern Star Wars it feels like people are kind of knowingly being bad and making the wrong decisions. Like
So yes,
I almost
I
feel
mean, I
like
don't disagree with that.
with this story like there's is it any fun if there's like no protagonist? Like it feels like everyone's kind of like a an antagonist who's kind of I don't know, kind of looking out for themselves and stuff.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to broaden the picture of both sides. Like, as for the Jedi's, at least looking back, like the original trilogy, were pretty one note. Like, they were the good guys. There was no really deviation from that. The prequels, you're right, only kind of touched base on it more that they were at fault because they weren't aware of some of the stuff going on. They were kind of tricked, and that made them make bad decisions. But I don't even think that's 100% true. Like, honestly, if you look at even like episode one, I think a lot of people would kind of agree that Qui-Gon was probably one of the what's the right phrasing
He
for this?
was
I want to say most morally clear Jedi, the one most people kind of root for, but he very much was against where the Jedi Order was because they wanted to shut down all emotions. That was,
I was gonna say
after the dark
he
side.
acted largely on emotions and kind of that was something you're not supposed to do within the Jedi Order
Well,
is
and he was more
yeah.
about finding that balance where it seems like the Jedi leaned one direction, just like the Sith leaned one direction. Qui-Gon was kind of finding that middle ground a little bit, which I think was kind of antithesis to where the Order was in those first few episodes. And this kind of builds upon it. Like, it kind of shows the negative of that too. If you are overly emotional, what that can lead to. That was Soul's big issue, which I really liked the Soul character in this. Did you
I
ever
liked
see
him
Squid
for
Game, by the way?
which one? I saw Squid Game. Yeah,
Because, this is the Squid
yeah,
Game
it's a Squid
actor.
Game guy.
Yeah.
I liked him for a large portion of the show, and then towards the end, I felt like he began to I don't know, just I think it was on purpose. I think again they were like you're saying they're trying to portray some of these characters as good natured, good meaning people who just
Hmm.
happen to let their emotions guide them in the direction of making the wrong decision. But it's like I don't know, it ends up not being fun. At least in my opinion. I don't know.
Well, I do agree that I mean I liked the Soul character as a whole. I liked the performance. I do feel like some of the decisions he made towards the end, I think is more of a writing issue.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, also I guess that goes to the character and how they were portraying him, I suppose. But just once again, to stay positive. As a whole, I liked the Soul character. I liked the Kamir character too. The
Yeah,
kind of
he's
early
probably the best
villain for the
character in the
most
whole
part.
show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get quite enough of him. Like they're definitely teasing kind of his backstory with him. He was apprentice of the one
Apprentice of
Green Jedi. I
Vernestra.
thought I had her name.
Vernestra.
Yeah.
Who
So
is
there's
the
definitely some
who's
story
the
beats
wife
there.
of the writer of the showrunner.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
the
know
wife.
that.
That's why a lot of
Oh,
people
well,
were like
maybe.
a lot of people were kind of looking at her like her performance wasn't the
Yeah,
total best, and a
I
lot of
was.
people are, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I'm kind of praising Kamir and Soul and the actors and how they portrayed them, but when it comes to that particular character, the acting was
Yeah, she
pretty
wasn't like
one note.
awful,
There
but
wasn't a lot
it
of
was a
depth
one
to
note
where she was
character.
at.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't think her
I don't know.
I didn't think the makeup team did a great job with her character either. I don't know. It just was a weird setup.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think that's a shorter list. I think looking back than I wanted to be. That's most of my pros, to be honest. I like the premise. I like some of the fights. Some of the performances is really good, and their take on the Jedi and even the Force and kind of what it is to other entities. I thought that was interesting because, like,
Hmm.
the witches have a different way of viewing the Force, and of course, the Sith and the Jedi view the Force differently. And now it looks like you have some Force users in between that are kind of figuring out what the Force means to them. So it does broaden it. I mean, I can understand where you're like, it makes it everybody's too kind of ambiguous, and there's not enough clear. This is the right, um,
Hmm.
you know, narrative perspective to kind of get behind. So that's fair, but I like a little bit of complexity because the old movies didn't have a lot of complexity. I say it was very much good, bad, and this adds a little more nuance to it.
I mean,
Now, does it work all the time? No, but I don't know.
I just thought maybe the only good character, like if you like look purely look at decisions and what people they were trying to do, I think Andara might be the only like character who made like the right decision at integral times, and solely the only reason why she was kind of lying towards the end with the Jedi is because of her people making stupid mistakes. Her Torben, her
Mm.
Padawan, you know, getting on the speeder and rushing off because he doesn't want to
Oh
be
yeah,
there, and then Saul following, and she basically is cleaning up their mess throughout the entire time. And she's
yeah.
even like the Jedi, the Council are telling us to leave these people alone. We're interfering with their life. You know, we're not supposed to be here. And I don't know, I felt like she may have been the only good character.
But still define good in this perspective. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate with you. I'm sorry, but
She still hides
okay.
the
So
truth
yes,
at the end. So I mean,
well, not just that, but so she made the right logical choices based upon the rules of the order and whatnot.
doing what
Yes,
she
we
was
shouldn't just
told.
run to this place and
Yeah.
grab the kids, but there was clearly some importance to both those kids and Saul's rationale for wanting to pull them and investigate this virgins, which was clearly associated with these children, was an important thing. Even once again, go back to Qui-Gon. Like, he was disobeying the order by wanting to continually train Anakin. Now, was that the right decision, wrong decision? Like, I think when you just say this is the good answer, or the good character and their decisions versus the bad character and their decisions, like, I appreciate that this show tried to add a little more complexity and nuance to that. So
Hmm.
I guess that's where I'm at. As it doesn't always work. There's plenty of times where you're like, that particular choice felt maybe overly illogical or overly contrived, and I think that can be a problem. But I don't know. I like they at least introduced it because a lot of other shows don't. So.
And even
Um,
like, or sorry, where were you gonna go?
Oh, that's fine. I was seeing if I had any other pros, but you go
Uh,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I don't know if I'm shooting too far ahead, but like even though I disliked a lot of the premise of what they were going for, I liked the whole premise of it kind of turning on its face, the whole idea of May and Osha, you know, one leaning towards the
Mhm.
dark and one leaning towards the light. I liked the whole turn of it being um of it being the opposite, of Osha being the one who wants to kind of go and be off. And it makes sense because throughout her whole thing, they're always telling her, or Soul throughout the thing is telling her she has to gain better control of her emotions and all of this stuff. And it ends up leading to Kamir kind of leaning into that and like telling her, no, you need to lean
Mhm.
into your emotions. It makes you more powerful. All of that stuff, like premise wise, it's cool and it's fun. And
How
you
they
know
get to
how
each
they,
part is where it has trouble.
yeah, and I don't know, the flips that the characters make throughout is
Mhm.
quite sudden. I don't know.
So I guess we can start digging into the cons a little bit. And I really, I have several, but there's two big ones. I think you'll probably agree, and we kind of flesh these out. So
It's
this
not Jedi
show is
Wookiee.
really,
Jedi Wookiee is a positive. Jedi Wookiee is a big
uh,
positive.
if only he was the protagonist in the whole thing. He would have been the morally correct narrative character to follow.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
Sorry.
there's really two, I think, really important things in this show that kind of make this show what it is, that to make it work. You have the Osha May character dynamic, right? They're your protagonists, however you want to phrase it. And then you have the incident that kind of causes everything, right? The stuff kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
flashback scenes that happens in the witch temple. Like, those are the two most important things in this show because those characters are clearly, it's all about them and their association with the Force and the Virgins, etc., their relationship to one another. And then, of course, the at least narrative thread is that moment that kind of kicks off this whole thing, right? Instigates how Osha becomes who she is, and where May goes, and all of that. And for having these two super crucial things, both of those are the parts of the show that have the biggest problems, at least in my opinion. Starting with the Osha May thing, I think we've kind of already hit on it, but barring just some general, I think, portrayals of each character, the back and forth of flipping their morality is really jarring. It's very rarely, I think, supported well with any kind of like good rationale for why they switch sides. So I think you had mentioned it a few times, but let's say we're talking about Osha. Osha clearly starts out as the good character, right? Once again, good in quotes based on everything
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about. And then after she watches all of her Jedi friends, colleagues, whatever, get slaughtered, and then wakes up with the guy who just slaughtered them,
And
she's
he's
like,
hot. She's like, oh yeah.
cool. Yeah, and I wasn't sure if we want to go that route or not. But even if you set aside that, she's intrigued enough with this guy not to be overly weary of him. Like, she doesn't ever seem like she's like, well, maybe I shouldn't be teaming up or hanging out with this dude and, chilling out in his cave apartment. I don't know.
She
She
liked his
buddies
lightsaber.
with him. Yeah. She warms up to him way too quick and really just forgets about all the terrible things he just did.
Yeah.
It's not even like he takes a lot of time to really explain it in detail. If he gave some
Mm-mm.
really good reason, like, look, I slaughtered these people because they did
I
XYZ to me.
slaughtered
Like,
a
he
child
hints
in
at
front
it.
of you.
Yeah, yeah, it's horrible stuff that he does. It's not stuff that you just kind of sweep under the rug, right? Like, he did these terrible things to people who she apparently grew up with. What was the one
Oh,
dreaded Jedi Knight?
Yord.
Yord, yeah. Like, I don't know if they were like friends, but they clearly had known each other for quite a while and had some kind of, relationship to one another. And he just got his neck snapped. Like, all of that made it very hard for me to believe this switch she all of a sudden did, where that was the path where she started to go down the dark path a little bit, put
Mm-hmm.
on the helmet, was really just kind of taking whatever this guy said and just kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then she flips again, right? Then she's back to no, I'm good. I gotta go track down May. And then she gets to the end and is like, nope, now I'm gonna kill Soul because I just found out this one big secret thing without giving this guy any chance to explain himself. Like, it's just back and forth, back and forth. And it feels like it's because the story wanted them to go back and forth and didn't have time to be like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm leaning one way or the other. May's the same way. She starts out super bad, like killing all the Jedi, doesn't care. She has this one kind of focus goal. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the jungle, because she's too afraid of Khmer or I guess, whatever she sees it as the Sith Master guy is going to come after her, she betrays the whole thing. It's like, I'm just going to turn myself into the Jedi. Where'd that come from? This organization she has so much hatred for, she now all of a sudden believes they're trustworthy, is going to, surrender to them. And of course, then she doesn't. She
Yeah.
flip flops with Osha, then tries to kill Soul. It's just back and forth and back and forth. I'm not saying there wasn't a better way for these moments to happen. Like I said, I'm not opposed to the premise of them switching sides and
I
going through this
was
struggle. That's all fair. Just
I was
not written well with good rationale.
I was at least happy because the writing was kind of bad. So I thought what I thought they were gonna do when they swap sides is I thought they were gonna go the route of like Khmer and Soul not knowing that they had swapped. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
please do not do that. That is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. That these two elite Jedi and Sith cannot tell who's who. And luckily, they don't
And they
roll
only
with
kind of
that.
half did it.
They
They
half did
half
it
did
with
it with
Soul.
Soul.
I thought writing wise
Like
that could have
that.
been ridiculous, but
Yeah. No, the Jedi, they play pretty dumb a lot of the times. Like, these are people who, I mean, I guess when you're talking about a bunch of force sensitive people, maybe it's harder to, read the thoughts and influence, et cetera, et cetera. But still, it does paint them in a very incapable, is that the right word for this? I don't know. Where stuff like that would feel overly forced and not very practical with
I've
these
heard
particular characters.
I've heard Red Letter Media say it a bunch of times, but like the Jedi often are capable of everything and then sometimes nothing. It's so
Hmm.
weird how like, oh, they can run
Whatever
ridiculously
the
fast
story needs it to
and
be.
jump 20 feet in the 20 yards in the air, but then can't saw their way through a door sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't
Yeah,
know. They're kind
it's
of all over the
convenience
place.
for the
Yeah.
sake of plot. Yeah, and sometimes I'll tell you, I can certainly be aware of that
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm forgiving of it if it serves a better story. If there's a reason that okay, I'll let stuff like that slide. But when there's no bigger payoff and it's just a dumb decision that leads to another dumb decision that didn't make sense in the first place, then it all adds up and all feels like, kind of wasted
Yeah.
effort. So that was my first big issue, the whole OSHA May flip flop stuff. Them as characters, I mean, they were fine. I liked OSHA better than May in general. OSHA at least felt like she had more. They developed her more. I mean, they had more time with OSHA, so I think that helped. May, I think, would just be one way and then completely different the other, and there wasn't a lot of reason one way or the other. So she was a harder character for me to kind of associate or care about. I don't know if you had anything else you want to add as far as the OSHA May kind of dynamic.
Um, gosh, not really. I didn't really. I'll be honest. I felt like they were two. I think they were actually played by one person. I think it was one
Yeah,
person
as
playing
one
like
actress.
a dual role.
Except for the kids. The kids were separate,
Oh, were they? Oh, okay. Um,
which I thought that was odd. Why? I mean, I know it's hard to cast, identical twins that can act well. Not everybody can be Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen.
hmm,
But they got two kids that looked very different from one another, which made it confusing for me for a while. And then when I saw them as adults and they're clearly identical, like I don't know, I thought that was a little jarring. But
how
I can
did
understand that's probably more of a casting issue than anything else.
how does two girls who have been separated for like 10 years look exactly the same when they haven't seen each other and they have like the
You
same
talk about the
exact
hair.
haircut and they look they don't like change their makeup or their hair or their
Because the
outfits.
story wanted them to look the same for that initial who done it moment. We're trying to figure out who the murderer was.
All
Which
all May has to do is cut off 10 bangs and she looks exactly like OSHA.
once again, convenience for the sake of plot, which in many
Yeah.
cases I wouldn't mind, but because once again it's a kind of scaffolding here that doesn't well support that and doesn't really go anywhere, it makes those moments look all
We
the
have to
sillier.
get
So I
to
agree with that.
B from A, so
Yeah. All right. So I said the other big issue with this show, which once again is the other probably most important part, is that big kind of instigating premise, right? That kind of kicks off the whole thing. The
hmm
witches, huts, home, whatever being
did
burned
we
down, the
did we
mom
figure
getting
out
killed, all that.
what the witches ultimately wanted to do with the twins? They had mentioned something about a possible
No.
sacrifice, but we I don't know if they meant
Well,
I don't know if they meant just like you have to sacrifice a part of yourself or if it was just like a phrase of words versus them actually sacrificing the girls. I think it was more of a phrase than anything.
Well, from what I could tell, it's really hard to gather anything. They left everything very vague for that. Obviously, because they
hmm
want to expand upon it in a season two. Like they didn't really talk about what the Virgins was. Like they kind of did, but not really. They certainly didn't go into how the Virgins impacted these two girls,
They didn't go
how the
into
witches split them. Because there was
that's what
something
I was
where
gonna
it was
say. They
one
didn't go into
child
how
they split.
the one mother was mostly responsible. The one mother is the
Yeah.
one that
So I
largely
mean,
did it.
sacrifice could have meant bringing them back together as
Oh, so
one person.
technically one gets sacrificed by joining. Yeah.
Maybe, like, it's all very vague, and it's also it could be interesting, right? Like, I thought
Yeah.
that kind of stuff could have been cool. I hate that we're not gonna get any of that until season 2. Like, what I thought was the more interesting story beats here they were kind of planting, no payoff in this particular season. It's all gonna be season 2, assuming we get a season 2. So, um, I don't know. That whole story beat, though, with that flashback has so many problems. I don't know. Do you want to call out any particular ones? Do you want me to go through them? Because I've
Um.
got 3 or 4 here that I have
I
an issue
mean,
with.
the Flash. Probably one of the things I was annoyed by was Torben. I his entire plot line of him just wanting to go home and being tired is
Yeah,
I found super annoying. I didn't. I just
super
he
dumb.
just like runs up into the place. Oh no, that's right. He arrives at the speeder and then Saul catches up and Saul's
Soul
like,
chases
"Okay,
after,
I'll
and
help
it's
you
on
up.
fire.
I'll help you get in there." And they start climbing. It's like, "Okay."
Yeah, like, I mean, to be fair, something bad was going to happen more the other because the whole place is on fire, but the whole conflict could have played out so differently if Torben didn't rush in there, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there was a fire. They all the witches could have got out of there potentially. Like the only reason the witches died is because the Jedi interfered, right?
Yeah.
Most of them probably could have found a way to escape and got out. Maybe, I don't know. I know like the doors were also shut or something because of what May did. So maybe not. The whole point is Torben going did not help. Made no logical sense. Like he just wanted to go home because and kidnap these kids because that would have finished their quest essentially,
Yeah.
and that was a very forced reason for. A, I know not once again Jedi are not perfect. That's kind of I think the whole point of what they were trying to show here. But you assume Torben he was a Padawan, but not like a young Padawan. Like you
No.
assume he started as a youngling. He'd been a Jedi for what 12
He
years.
looked
Who
like
knows?
90 years old in that when they find him in that hut in the
Oh yeah,
future. He's
he looked
bald and
awful there.
beard. Been
Um,
sitting there for 10 years,
the
they
point
said.
being is, you think a relatively trained, even Padawan, wouldn't jump to that particular decision. Very, very rash.
Yeah,
And
Lucas
if
even made,
so,
even in the prequels, the children were like very even kill. They're like, Master, what would you like us to do? Like, even in the prequels, the children were like trained. I don't know.
you could even, if you're really digging into it, put the fault then on the masters for not better watching over their Padawan, maybe better explaining things. Like clearly he was having some psychological issues that
Mm-hmm.
these Jedi masters should have been like, oh, well, clearly we should probably give this guy some mental help. Like, I don't know. That was just a really bad
And
instigating
he even
factor that
caved
led this
in.
whole snowball of effects into a place.
He caved in to the one mother breaking into his brain and
Mhm.
essentially got him to flip on the Jedi just by telling him he can
Which,
go
you know what?
home.
If they would have leaned into that, maybe, like, if she would have still been in possession of him somehow out in the woods, and that's what spurred him to run back through some level of, influence, maybe that could have been a little more justifiable, but clearly it was just him being tired of this place. At least that's the way I read it. I didn't like that.
You didn't
Soul, of course, then supported it. Go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say you didn't get any like weird vibes from Soul throughout the entire time of him like kind of following the children around. It was just kind of like he's like sneakily hiding behind trees watching them like play and stuff, and I was just like just weird. I don't know, he's a weird
I don't think I
character.
got the Yeah, I don't think I got the vibes that you got. I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't think that was what they were trying to portray
I
at
don't.
all.
I'm kind of
Um,
joking, but it was just weird. Like him, just like he's like sticking out behind a tree, watching them play with
yeah, it's
fireflies, and
not the most subtle way either. It was a little awkward. I mean, I'll give you that much, but I don't think there was any extra underlining
it just
thing they were trying to say there about Soul.
and also he just like he was so invested in getting them out of there.
Hmm.
It's like why the children are fairly happy and taken care of. They're in a fortress with like familial things like what was the fear that was going to happen
Yeah,
to them?
I think
Just
this
that they need to
requires
get
you to try. You
trained.
have to
That was the only thing,
I
they need
think
to
you
get
have to read
trained.
into it a lot. Like, I guess here's the thing, like, I don't know much about, once again, extended Star Wars lore that deals with like force sensitive witch force cults or whatever they called
Mm-hmm.
them. And maybe at this time that was seen as a bigger issue. Like maybe force witches were known to be more of a negative impact on the universe for whatever reason. They were, I don't know, maybe not Sith, but along those lines. So maybe there was some concern there.
And
But
they even
I don't know, that's reaching too. Like they
uh,
didn't necessarily give you enough information to make that decision, just kind of hinted at it. Um,
the
and I don't
witches
know. I
even
mean, give
called the
credit.
Jedi stupid for not knowing they're there. Those Jedi have like they show up and they're like, how do you not know that we're here? You know, why are you intruding on our thing? And it's like the Jedi don't. They just show up on this planet and they just run into these people's
I guess
houses. I don't know.
this kind of leads to another issue. That this happens in a lot of stories. Like a lot of conflicts in many movie shows are caused because there's just a lack of transparency by either side, right? Like the Jedi just won't say clearly, "We're here because we're checking out this virgins," and the other witches won't say, "Well, this happened." Like if people would just be open, it would relinquish all the issues with a lot of these
We'll just tell
conflicts.
people
And they
they killed
probably,
their mom.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that. I mean, the fact that that never came up over X amount of years, but just
Hmm.
saying that, it's that general thing of they hide enough information from one another so the conflict can happen and kick off the story. When most, if this was a realistic scenario, you would hope there'd be a little more transparency and maybe that would help avoid a conflict. But then again, maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. Um,
Sorry.
so I
Go
don't
ahead.
know. I mean, Soul's character. No, you're okay. Yeah, and that's true. Soul's character and his, overly emotional state for trying to save the kids was a big issue, right? That's why
Hmm.
he supported, I think, Torben trying to get in there and save the kids. Like, they wasn't listening to Ndara and the order, so there was a problem there. I think the other big kind of hinging moment that I didn't love was okay. So he kills the mother, right?
Hmm.
Stabs her right in the gut,
Which, to
and
be
I think
fair,
the
she's like
show,
becoming a mist creature next to him. So
yeah,
it's like I can understand how
and
you
that's
would be
the issue.
frightful a little bit.
Yeah, the show is trying to paint his murder of their mother as just this flat out terrible thing, right? You should not have killed their mother. And that's what's basically caused May and Osha to go down these separate paths. And it's what ultimately causes him to, get killed in the end because he murdered her parent or her mother and wouldn't say anything.
Hmm.
But it's not like his actions were completely unjustified. Were they the right actions?
He shouldn't
Maybe,
have been
maybe
there in the
not. That's
first
hard to
place. Is the
say.
problem? Wrong
Right.
place. Yeah.
But she was going all ghosty dust form, and
Hmm.
not just her doing that, but, May, like, she was causing May to deteriorate, so something was happening there. He was already worried about the kids. For all he knew, she was killing the kid,
They were
and that was
controlling a
his concern.
Wookiee to attack them, and yeah.
So it's not like his action was unfounded. Once again, was it right? Not saying yes or no there, but it had some hint of I can see why that happened, which leads to the ending. I mean, you could tear down that moment a little bit more if you wanted, but the ending really comes down to then what Osha finds out. I think does May say it outright? I think May says it like Soul killed our mom. And then with no explanation by Soul, he doesn't even take a moment to be like, "Well, I did, but this is why." He just like, "Yep, I killed her," and then she just force chokes him to death.
Yeah, and he says, "I
This
love
guy who is
you."
basically he's basically been her father figure for what 10, 12, I don't know how many years, most of her life, and she wouldn't think to give him at least a moment of, well, maybe there's something else here. I should probably let him explain. I mean, I know you could argue, oh, he should have explained throughout the past 10 years, but I don't know. That made that last moment feel really awkward and contrived because once again, I feel like that should have been a chance that he could have given some justification and she could have then chosen to accept it or not. That would, I think, made her decision to kill him more impactful because then she would have
Hmm.
heard the truth and then still let her emotions come over and snap his neck instead of, oh, you killed my mom? That's just the worst thing that could have happened. Nobody's telling me otherwise.
Yeah,
Bam, you're dead. So a lot of this show just ends up being contrived in very obvious ways, convenient ways, and poorly written ways. I said the premise of the show is not bad, but there's just a lot of forced moments, forced motivations that don't add up at the end, and it leaves you in a place of like, who are these characters? What do they want? Why'd they let these things happen?
I
And that's
think
not a good place to leave your characters at the end of a season.
I think my problem, the boys was able to avoid it oddly enough, but like my problem with a lot of modern movies and movie series and TV shows is the consistency of writers. Like when you go through like a show like this, you will see first 2 3 episodes you'll have a main writer,
Mm.
then the next 2 3 episodes each episode will have a different writer, then the main writer will come on and write the last episode of the last 2 episodes, and it's like I feel like to have a coherent and consistent story that makes sense, you have to have somebody who, I mean, maybe it's impossible in terms of like unions or in terms of like how many days on
Must be
somebody
the
can work
director.
versus not work. But like, yeah, for the most part, you should have one person in control of writing because who else is better to see their issues and see what connective tissues are missing than the person writing? And it's
Um,
like, it's Star Wars did that with the modern stuff. You have J.J. Abrams, then you bring on Rain Johnson, and then you realize, oh, we messed up with him. Let's bring back J.J. to try and correct. It's just like people correcting issues on top of things, and I don't know. I'm not saying that there were
uh,
major issues here, but maybe that could be some explanation for some of the motivation
I mean,
part
I
missing.
don't
I don't know.
in in essence, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but that's not necessarily like the rule of thumb. I'm trying to look it up real quick.
Oh, some of the writers for
Because
the
even,
episodes.
well, let's see. I was trying to look back at like the writers for even like the original trilogy. Like they were not the same all the way through.
It
I mean, they had
was
some people who
wasn't
were
it Kathleen?
Lawrence,
Was it Kathleen
the
Kennedy?
original trilogy.
Yeah, wasn't
No,
she?
she
Or
wasn't a
she was a
writer.
producer. She might have been a producer.
She might have been involved, but
That's right,
Lawrence
Lawrence
Kasdan is the
Kasdan.
name that keeps
Yeah.
popping
Okay.
up. But they had other people there too. Leigh Brackett. I mean, George Lucas was involved in certain aspects. I don't think it's a problem necessarily to have different writers. Sometimes that can help because if you have one writer, unless they are just excellent, and some are, sometimes writers can get stuck in their own head and miss
Mm-hmm.
stuff too. Having other perspectives can be helpful. I think the issue is you do need someone, as you said, to give a cohesive view to it. Sometimes that is like a lead writer. Sometimes it's the director who is looking at the story as a whole and figuring out how to take these stories in the writing and put it in a way that is cohesive. Now, it can definitely go different directions. Like your example of the Disney sequel with Force Awakens to Last Jedi to was it Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
That was extremely jarring, but I think that's like worst case scenario. It's also really common for TV series to have different writers for different episodes. Like I don't think that's unheard of. I think though a show that has a better overarching vision, a director that is worth his salt and can kind of see the whole vision, help it play out, helps with that a lot. So I don't know. Don't disagree. The writing, and to be fair too, I'm not a writer, so I think whenever I try to critique someone else's writing, I feel like a little bit of a sham because I'm not saying I could do better. Um, but it is obvious when you do see things that don't feel, I hate to say don't feel natural in a Star Wars movie, but when story beats play out in a way that like just don't make sense, that means there's an issue with the writing at some
Mm-hmm.
level. And I think I am more forgiving than some. I said I'm not a writer. I'm not the most critical guy in certain aspects. I mean, I will certainly let things go if I can enjoy the content that I'm trying to take part in. But there are things I think are overly glaring, and this show had a bunch of them.
I think you can lack in writing if you make up for it in entertainment and fun. I would not say that this show made up for
Mm.
any of its weak points in the writing in terms of it being entertaining and fun. I mean, I
It also depends on what the point of the show is. Like this show wasn't about being entertaining and fun. It couldn't have been. Like the premise of the show, it was a very story-driven, character-driven show. Or
yeah.
at least it should have been. So when the characters in the story are rough or on the edges, to be put it lightly, that makes the whole show suffer. Even if there are fun moments, like I said, the battles were really good. Some of the set pieces were fine. But because that's not the point of this show, I think this will be a good juxtaposition when we talk about Deadpool. Deadpool's purpose is to be fun, right?
Yes. Yes.
And zany and whatnot. The writing just needs to be serviceable enough. So it's the impact that the different story elements, or I should say,
Mm-hmm.
content elements need to be to kind of have the focus on. So I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to hit on this show. The
Well,
ending I thought was dumb.
we're just
Just to
gonna
mention it,
say
like
we're 45 minutes in. So yeah, just yeah, keep going.
yeah,
Sorry.
last thoughts. The ending I did not like because they all escaped, right? May, Osha, and Camille all got away.
Yeah. Why
Why
didn't they just
did
go
May
together?
get left
Why did
behind?
they just
Yeah,
go
why didn't they
together?
stay
Yeah.
together? I mean, I guess the issue is May has an issue with Camille because she betrayed him, and clearly there's a conflict there. But it's not like at that moment he was looking to gun her down. He even there
Mm-hmm.
were moments in the fight where he was kind of supportive of her. Like I think they could have gotten along long enough to get off that planet, go somewhere else, and then part ways. But no, they
I think
chose to wipe her
OSHA
memory and leave her to the Jedi.
did
Like
OSHA just want hot guy to herself? I don't know.
maybe, but all three of those characters
Hot guy
could
that
have came
killed
up with
her
a better way to
all
end
of
it.
her friends, everyone that she knows.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
I don't know. That I thought was a poor way to leave things. The cameos. So you had the Yoda cameo at the very
I was
end,
gonna say Yoda.
which
Yep.
man, I'm very worried about that. For one, it's not. I don't feel like it's going to be here for any good reason to have
My
Yoda in this
my
story. Like it feels like it's a lure just to get you to watch season 2. That's really all
my
it feels like to me.
my worry is that are they gonna go the route of with Yoda and the Jedi Council? Are they gonna go the route of Vernestra continuing to lie about what happened and what's happening, and Yoda again being completely unaware of what's happening
Hmm.
when he is like 1,000-year-old master Jedi and all of this the wise Jedi
Yeah,
council, are they still going to be unaware of what's happening? And it's like, come on, man, y'all are supposed to be like the coolest, best
exactly.
characters in this whole series, and
Like, what good is bringing Yoda in this gonna do for his
other
character?
than
Like, I
make
can
him look
only see
stupid.
negatives here. It's either gonna make him look stupid because they're lying to him and putting it all under the rug, and the wisest Grandmaster Jedi is just like, "Oh, me don't seen anything." Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna ruin. I don't want to say ruin, but it's definitely going to taint future appearances of him in the prequels and the sequels and stuff like that. Um, Either that or he's complicit in it. He does
Which
know
is
there's an issue, which
just as
means he knew
worse,
about the
maybe.
Sith, and that just makes everything else have all these other bigger ramifications. So, like, I feel like including him only causes issues, and they just threw him in there just as a hook to bring people in, which feels really cheap. I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Um, then
Now,
you had the Plagueis
I was gonna
cameo.
say Plagueis. Yep.
Which I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't like his cameo the way they
I
did it,
thought he
but when the
looked
show
cool.
first started, yeah, he looked fine. I guess I don't know. When the show first started, before I knew anything about it, and they didn't really reveal Kamir and who he was, I kind of hoped that Sith or Dark Force user at the beginning was Plagueis, like he was ambiguous enough that he could have been. And I thought it'd be interesting to see once again Plagueis's origin, how it impacts once again leads to the stuff we were talking about.
Well,
And it
from
still could, I suppose. It just feels less interesting him just kind of in the shadows doing his
I
thing.
was just thinking, what they could be going for. I probably heard this theory somewhere. That's probably why I'm thinking of it. But because we never got an explanation of just how the girls were created by the mother who was
Hmm.
what's her name? Oh, Mother Anastasia and Coral. Because we never got an explanation of how they were birthed exactly, and it could be that where they're trying to go is that because we know that Plagueis, his ultimate thing was Anakin. Anakin was his like
Yeah,
um his
he
ultimate
conceived
creation.
Anakin through the Force. Yeah,
Anakin's supposed to be the ultimate creation that is the one. He is Jet Li, but
yeah,
um
great movie.
they could be they could have been keeping that secret as to how the girls were created. They could have been keeping that a secret and saying that Plagueis maybe he was experimenting, or maybe he is the one that created the
Yeah,
girls in the background, just as like a first test for him working his way towards Anakin. I don't know, just a theory.
yeah, and there's still something interesting there. I mean,
Maybe he
it
was
didn't go
working
where
with
I
the
thought it was
witches
gonna
somehow.
go.
No, they were on different planets. Maybe, I
Yeah,
don't
of
know.
course he would have had to go to that planet, and he could have. I mean, these are all space traveling
Mm-hmm.
peoples or aliens or
Wizards.
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. There's still some hope in the Plagueis storyline. I just didn't love where it went. It actually felt a little cheaper just to have him pop up at the end, but maybe that's just me.
And
Um,
then
the last
just
thing. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, just a lot of people are speculating that at this time, because Plagueis at this time, I think I read he's only supposed to be like 10 to 15 years old. They were saying that at this
Yeah,
time, the real people that
he's
are
old.
yeah, the real people that are supposed to be in charge are like his masters. So now it's
Hmm.
like, so what's happened? I think I've read it. They're called Lord Tenebrous and Lord
Hmm.
Venomous, I believe, are the two. Like he technically at this time is like a Sith learner or Sith Padawan or something.
Which is kind of why I thought he would be the Kamir character a little bit, because I don't know. As I just didn't play out the way I thought. There's still some potential there, and it could go a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of ways. I don't know if they're going to stick directly to what the current canonical lore is, because they're clearly open to changing whatever they want to for the sake of their story. So I don't know. It could kind of be whatever, which I don't know. That is probably one of the few interesting things I am curious about in a season two, but it's still kind of a wait and see thing.
Yeah, I agree.
The last thing I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of more of a fan theory or really more like a missed potential thing. I think they could have made this show a little bit better, and you can tell me if this is a dumb idea or not. So, something I didn't really like at the beginning of the show is very quickly it's revealed that Osha and May are two separate entities, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to say two separate people because they're not, according to the story, but they are two separate bodies, which kind of ruins the whole murder mystery aspect at the very beginning. Like in one episode, that's resolved. Like, oh, that was my sister. The end. There's no more mystery about it. I thought it would have been a lot more interesting if maybe it really was one body. Like May and Osha were one body, split personality. Like maybe Osha didn't know when May took over, and maybe vice versa. Even that could have led to some interesting moments where Osha maybe didn't know May was around. I mean, they could have maybe still been
Mm,
separate as kids, but when May died, once again they were created weird. Maybe something happened where May's consciousness went back to the source, went back to Osha,
like
and
Plagueis
was kind of
can
possessing her in a way.
Plagueis because he created them. He has some sort of I don't know, way of influencing or something. I don't know.
Maybe. But I thought that could have been interesting because then it could have once again stretched out the mystery more of okay, we're seeing two different characters, but we never see them in the same place or stuff like that. So it could have made some fun, interesting things like that. And I think it also would have made the quick turns in morality a little more interesting because it's one person literally fighting herself in two different, very conflicting aspects. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have changed the story a lot. I mean, of course, with the way it played out, it wouldn't have worked exactly with their story beats. But I'm imagining a different show that would maybe a little more focused on the murder mystery aspect of it, and OSHA and this conflicting kind of moral quandary. Like, I don't know, just a thought. Maybe
Yeah.
that's dumb, but could have been a cooler way to play things out. So let me know your thoughts in the comments if anybody is
Yeah.
still here. So,
I've just for me personally, I just have two little fun facts to throw in. I liked
okay.
the weird, kind of funny little cameo from the guy from Alan Wake 2. The guy at the very end, he plays
Oh yes,
the guy from
the
Alan Wake
senator.
2, Senator. Yeah, he played. Who did he play? He played Mister. What's that guy's name? Mister something in Alan Wake 2. He played the
Mr.
TV
Door,
Mister
is that
Door
it?
TV show host. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, and also that was a I liked his character because once again it kind of added back to suspicion in the Jedi, right? Like
yeah,
these are just some religious nut jobs that have too much power. So that kind of goes back to one of the positives. But yeah, I liked his cameo.
and then apparently, from what I understand from reading, is that apparently the guy from Squid Game, Saul, apparently he never fully learned English. So he
I heard
like,
that.
I mean, I think it's obviously when you're telling, he's like probably reading directly off a script or memorizing lines. But like, yeah,
Probably had a
apparently,
voice coach to get through those
yeah,
lines.
you could tell he
If
was kind
anything
of working his
though,
way.
like it was rough, but I still think he
He did
was
pretty
one
good.
of the
Yeah.
better characters here. Like even with the rough dialect, like he had the best emotion behind his lines. I think what he
Mm-hmm.
did had the most weight and gravitas to it. Kamir was the only other thing really solid performance. Who else was in here that I think actually had a good performance? Yeah, is it Carrie Ann Moss? That's
Carrie Ann
Trinity.
Moss, Matrix. Yeah.
She was fine. She was
Pretty
Carrie
one
Ann
note.
Moss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There weren't a
The
lot of
OSHA May
characters in this. Yeah.
characters.
I thought
I
they were
think
pretty one
OSHA was
note.
portrayed better than May, but yeah, they had their own issues. Part of it could have been writing. I don't know. Performances were a mixed bag here. A couple of standout ones. But either way, I don't know. This
Oh, we
story.
forgot a best character was the little rodent,
Don't say the beaver.
the beaver
No,
guy.
no, not the Beaver Man. I did not like Beaver Man.
I'm kidding.
Um,
He was just
I don't
kind of
really have
funny
anything
and
else to say
funny in
about this.
spurts. Or any
Would
excitement
you
for
recommend this show?
oh
Like, if someone's a Star Wars fan and they're considering watching this,
I think this
is
would
it
be
worth their
I
time?
think this is fun for like a mom and dad who aren't big Star Wars fans who are just wanting to watch something sci-fi. I think this is I have
Hmm.
that exact opinion for Halo. Like I feel like cuz my funny fact, my mom actually liked Halo and was watching it. But like it's like dumb family sci-fi. You know what I mean? It's not quite
Yeah,
like hardcore nerd sci-fi, but it's whatever. You know, I feel like it's
that's
fun
fair.
for a mom and dad see somebody flipping through the air with lightsabers. You know, entertaining for a bit.
I even think then though there's better shows to watch.
Oh
I
yeah,
would say if you're a Star Wars fan, I honestly would not watch season 1 yet until we find out if there's a season 2 and if season 2 is worth it. Cuz this
need to see
story
where
on
this
its own,
goes. Yeah.
season 1 leaves you with almost nothing. I think I kind of mentioned it. It doesn't resolve any of the Virgin stuff. The Osha May stuff's left even kind of unresolved. Like it just doesn't leave you in a good spot. You're not much better off than when you began. If season 2 has some big revelations and adds some context, then maybe it's a nice beginning to end watch. But right now, unless you have some real big interest in checking it out, I leave it on the back burner until we see what happens with the season 2.
Mm, cool. All right, everybody. Well, that was our chat for the Acolyte, Disney's The Acolyte. Down in the comments, let us know. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Are people far more positive about it than we are? Again, I would say I didn't completely hate it. I even told Phoenix, I was like, I thought it was okay. It could be that my perspective is skewed because I am totally disconnected from modern Star Wars. Like I don't watch any. This is the first thing I've seen since the Obi-Wan show, and I actually think I liked this more than Obi-Wan, but that was just me.
Yeah, I guess it's probably better than Obi-Wan. I think it's better than Ahsoka, but barely, maybe? I don't know. All
Barely,
those are
yeah, they're
bad for
close.
different reasons. So none of them I think are a whole lot of fun to watch, to be honest. But either way.
All right, so let's move on to something that is fun to watch. Da, da, da. We are moving on to a Deadpool. All right, so
And Wolverine, of course.
Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, who could forget? Now, where to even start with this movie? I'll let you pick a point because I'll be honest. When I was making my notes,
So
I didn't even know where to start. There's so much cool stuff to talk about with this movie.
yeah, so I mean I did a pros con list like I did with the last one, but I think one
Spoilers,
important thing to kind of
spoilers. We're spoiling one of the best movies of the
I
year.
think something to really keep in mind going into this movie is set your expectations accordingly. Like Citizen Kane, this is not. This isn't even like if you think about Marvel movies. This is not an Infinity War Endgame type of movie where like it's all about the connective tissue and all the
Mm-hmm.
purport. Like it's not that kind of movie. It doesn't need to lead into anything. It's its own self-contained deal whose main goal is to help let you have fun for what an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like there's not much more to it than that. The plot is pretty bare bones. The stakes, although I mean, in some ways you could argue they're big stakes, really they come across pretty low level, and really it's mostly reasons to get from one set piece to another set piece to another set piece, all kind of glued together with jokes and satire and stuff like that. So if you are aware of that, and you're also a fan of Deadpool comedy, we had a buddy who we watched the movie with,
Oh, I had
who
it in the notes. Yeah.
yeah. He said, "Oh, my only complaint is I didn't like all the jokes." And we just looked
He
at
said
him
there were
like,
too many
"What
jokes.
did
He's
you
like,
expect?" Well, and then at the end, he's like, "I didn't like all the gay jokes." So he was a little particular to a certain type of humor, I suppose, which is fair. Like, know what kind of humor you're getting yourself into. If you watch Deadpool 1 and 2, you
you know what
know
you're
what kind
getting.
of humor you're
Yeah.
getting into. So I think people who are watching this third movie have probably watched a prior Deadpool. I mean, maybe not. I mean, this movie I think is probably marketed differently than the other ones to a certain extent. It's the first MCU Deadpool movie.
Hold
Um,
on. I didn't notice that.
watching the clip.
Yeah, hold on. Look at Logan's face as him and Dogpool.
Oh yeah.
I didn't notice he's like sickened by these two.
hmm
That's so funny.
The point being, know what you're getting into, and if you do that, I think you're going to hopefully partake in this movie the way I think it was meant to be partaken. So that's all I'll really say to start out. I mean, do you want us to do like pros and cons? I don't think this is the type of movie that you really want to give like a huge plot
First
summary of or
first
anything.
pro, Backstreet Boys. I feel like that's
Soundtrack is
soundtrack.
so fun in this.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't Backstreet Boys, by the way. It was In Sync. Bye bye
Is it
bye.
in sync?
Come on.
No,
Yes, it
isn't
was
that
In
Backstreet
Sync.
Boys?
No,
Maybe
you're
I'm
coming.
wrong.
This is coming from the guy who didn't know that Iris was written by the Goo Goo Dolls. Like, come on.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that was something new to me. I know the song. I didn't know who wrote it. But yeah, that whole
So,
opening scene where you don't know how he gets there, but Deadpool, again, spoilers for the entire movie. Deadpool arrives at which is really cool. He shows up at the end of Logan, or many
Mhm.
years after the Logan movie. But yeah, he digs up his exoskeleton and he's like dancing around with it, and it's so cool how he uses that as a weapon for this
Mhm.
connected into what Loki season 2, which I haven't seen. But yeah, the TVA, which is some organization, shows up. What's it? Time
Time Variance
variance
Agency or
agency.
something.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
authority. I don't know.
and he shows up, and you know, Instinct kicks on, and he to that song he starts killing everybody using
Yeah.
Wolverine's exoskeleton. It's great.
Yeah, so those two good points to kind of make there. One, like this movie doesn't it doesn't take any time to kind of remove the reverence of Logan. Like the whole point of this movie was this first time Hugh Jackman's back as Wolverine after really probably one of the best finales for a character ever with Logan. So
Hmm.
they don't really tiptoe around it. It's like, yep, we're bringing him back, and we're going to do it in probably the most insulting way possible by digging up his old bones. So I think because it was so over the top, it made it, okay in a way. It didn't feel like it ruined the, Logan movie at all. But soundtrack choices like are a lot of fun in this. Like it's all a licensed track, as you probably guess, and it kind of ranges the gambit from like 80s, 90s, pop culture stuff, but they always hit so well. Like that NSYNC dance at the beginning. There's a moment which I don't think I can ever truly describe. That they have a clip from the Goo Goo Dolls song "Iris," and it's just a perfect moment where that music only plays for like 5 seconds. I feel like
Is that when he's falling backwards?
Just makes that scene. Yeah, butt first into that one guy who was
that guy's like
him. I know.
And I actually
lots of moments like that.
At the beginning when he's dancing and he's killing all the TVA agencies, there's a moment where, gosh, I don't even know what was happening. He stabs one guy in the behind, and he stabs another guy behind him in the junk, and he's like going back and forth while stabbing these, and it's just like, what is happening? It's very grotesque, and I don't know about our buddy that watched it, but I wasn't really tired of the jokes. I mean, I feel like that.
And once you have to enjoy that humor. If you don't enjoy that humor, and for some people, they're not going to. It is kind of slapsticky,
it is
gory, lowbrow humor. Think almost like, this gets a lot of crap nowadays, but like Borderlands humor, almost. Maybe a little different in some ways, but take it for what it is. If you know that kind of humor and you like that kind of humor, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, you have to take into account Deadpool is a character that his whole thing is he likes everything's a joke, and he likes getting under people's skin and annoying people. Logan is this like gruff, chiseled, super serious jerk all the time, and it's like you have these two polar opposite personalities. What kind of way could Deadpool joke with him? Like that's the most annoying. Making those type of jokes, unfortunately, it's like it's the most ridiculous way to make fun of their their strange camaraderie. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's the most on the nose jokes because of the masculinity of Hugh Jackman or Wolverine. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, so you have that initial opening. I thought was really good.
I wrote down all the parts of the scene, so I don't know if that's how you wanted to kind of approach it, or if you came up with your own way. Where did they go? Well,
after that, they pretty quickly went to the TVA. Like, there's a little bit of flashback with them to kind of preface or set up him and his friends from the prior movies.
Did it go immediately into the TVA? Because I remember it going to his apartment and everything.
He's like at his job, showing his daily boring life with his friends, and and it's all his friends from the prior movie. So you got like Colossus sitting there, still all CG.
Negasonic,
and then you got
Warhead.
Yeah, Warhead. They got his ex-girlfriends and several other characters from prior movies. So they were kind of there. And then the TVA yoinks him out of there to be like, hey, we need you to basically go into the main line. Was it the Sacred Timeline, which where like all the main MCU stuff takes care of, which is what he wants. I guess his whole kind of existential crisis in this movie is that he doesn't feel like he's living up to anything great. He's not living up to his potential or doing something that's worth anything. Joining the main MCU timeline, becoming an Avenger, that's kind of what he wants to do. Yeah. But he finds out to do that, his timeline has to die with all of his friends. That's the crux or the premise of the whole.
No, his timeline is going to die because Wolverine dies. Wolverine is the anchor, apparently, in that specific timeline. And because Wolverine dies, it slowly begins to shrivel up his timeline because Logan is like the most important superhero, I guess, in that time. I don't know.
Right.
They make
but the plot point is he can either go to the MCU and let the timeline continue to die, or he could fight back against it and try to do something to save it, which is where the plot goes.
And he does it in the most ridiculous, funny way to start out with. Yeah.
As I said, though, at least for me, and if you want to go through the whole plot, we can. I didn't think the plot mattered a whole lot in this. No. Like, it's enough to give you reasons to bring characters in and to get them from point A to point Z, but it really is about what happens from moment to moment thing. So,
it literally is joke to joke.
From there,
even joke to joke.
Yeah, it's joke to joke.
Like, you're just waiting for the next line, you
know. After that, he goes and he starts trying to. Since Wolverine was the anchor, if we're going to talk on plot stuff. he's like, well, I can fix this by getting a different Wolverine and
But
bring him
before
back to
he
my
does
timeline.
that, I wanted to mention the weird Thor. I think that happened before, right? The weird Thor scene that he gets shown by the, what was that guy's name?
Oh yeah,
Pan Paradox, I think his name.
yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of another meme. That's kind of the two big memes that have come out of this whole movie are, one, the NSYNC, and then two, why is Thor crying? That's like the two biggest things that people have kind of taken away, because there's a strange scene that looks like it's pulled out of a future Marvel movie where clearly Thor is crying over a dying Deadpool or something. I don't know. I'm
Yeah, it's supposed to
branching
be
off.
his future in the sacred timeline. At some point, he has some interaction with Thor.
And then yeah, the
Leaves an
Marvel,
impression on him.
the Wolverine stuff.
So I guess the next big story beat is he goes through and tries to find a Wolverine. And once again, if you haven't paid attention to any Marvel stuff in the past 4 or 5 years now, it's all multiverse stuff. So
Hmm.
that's what this whole movie is bouncing back and forth and
And it
pulling all
makes
these
fun of
characters
that.
in from all these different.
It makes fun of
Yeah,
that idea like 24/7. It's like, oh, is this another multiverse movie? You know,
yeah. In this movie, I mean, and you could argue like when a movie makes fun of itself for being bad, like that's not an excuse for being bad. Like, but still, they definitely did lean into the fact that yes, there's been too much multiverse nonsense, and it's made Marvel be a little skewed for the past few years. So they play on that. But it really, I think this movie works really well because it gives them a chance to look at a lot of different characters that we haven't seen in a very long time, a lot of different versions of characters that we haven't seen in a long time. So, as I said, they're trying to pull in a new Wolverine to fix his timeline. So he doesn't just go to one timeline and yank the first Wolverine he sees. He goes through like 10 different
what's
Wolverines,
the first one
and
he
it's
sees?
cool. I don't remember what the first
First
one
one he
was.
sees is he sees this guy Wolverine sitting at a bar, and he like says, "Hey Logan," and Logan has to jump off of the seat because
Mhm.
he's like 4 foot tall.
So the canonical
Yeah,
short Logan, which you're right, they probably did make it overly short, but that's the joke, right? Wolverine's supposed to be 5 feet, and was it
he
Logan
has to
or
like
Hugh
jump off of the seat.
Jackman?
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah. But it's just it bounces back between all these different Logans. You get
There's
the
a double
canonical
O
one.
Seven Logan.
Yeah, where he's got like an eye patch, and all these are like comic references. So it kind of goes in between. Here's a cool comic callback, and then here's like just a funny cameo for various reasons. Like they had a lot of ones with like a Wolverine on the big X
I
with
think it's
skulls all
called
around him.
End
That's a
of.
comic book
It's like End
magazine.
of Time or something. Like Wolverine End of Time or something. That weird.
One of my favorites though is when they had the cameo with the
Cavill?
Calverine.
Calverine.
Calverine,
Yeah.
yeah. So Henry Calvin, I'm not sure. Most of the cameos were sparked by something, either like rumors or old castings from X amount of years ago. I don't know if Henry Cavill was ever like seriously considered to play Wolverine at any point. He might have been. I don't know. I didn't go back into the annals of
Are
lore and
they
rumors to see if that was ever a case.
are they leaning into like, could Cavill be the next Wolverine? Because Hugh's far
I
too
don't.
old to continue on. You know Disney
So
would
here's
love
something
it,
I
but
think. Well, okay. So here's something I think I do want to mention before we go too deep down, because this whole movie
hmm
has a lot of cameos for a lot of different characters. I don't realistically think that most of the cameos are
serious.
real like bids at, hey, you see this guy is playing this character, he's gonna be the next whatever. I'm not saying it couldn't be. Like
hmm
Disney's hopefully smart enough to be like, oh, that got a big enough reaction, maybe that could work. So could they cast Henry Cavill as Wolverine? Of course they could. I don't really think that was the reason why. Just like, and this is jumping ahead, but Channing Tatum as Gambit, they didn't do that, so I think they could have Channing Tatum as Gambit in a future movie.
No.
I think it was because he was supposed to have a Gambit movie X amount of years ago, right after X-Men Wolverine. He was supposed to have his own Gambit movie, and he got cast for it and never got made. So it was a callback to
Well,
that,
Henry
which
could
makes you wonder if
also.
the Cavill one has a callback, like what
It,
he was ever rumored for.
it could also be a shot at DC. They literally make a DC joke. They're like, "Oh, you since it failed with those guys down the road, that
Yeah,
that Deadpool says, not a huge shot, but it's definitely like a haha, we got your guy, type thing."
could be. Could be. As I don't think that's the number one goal of this movie is to, give you these little tastes of potential new actors and positions. Because if that was the case, like they did this with was it Multiverse of Madness, where they had John Krasinski as Reed
That's
Richards,
right. Yeah.
and he clearly was not where they were going. They went Pedro Pascal, very different choice. So I don't know. I think it was more just for the lulz more than anything else, but they were fun. And there's a lot of cameos in this movie, which
It's
I think could have
cameo palooza. Yeah.
and that could have went poorly. Like I think you had mentioned that, or even adding some more cameos to it. It was a fine line. Like there were enough that every few moments, like, hey, there's this character, there's that actor, there's this, but it always felt like it either served the moment or a nice quick one-off, and they didn't linger on it too much. Like I think it could have been very easy to go too far down that rabbit hole, or just you have every single, old X-Men, mock, I would say mocks, I can't speak, Fox, Marvel, I can't separate those for some reason, actors everywhere. So I think they found a good balance there. I do think there will be a negative that I want to talk about in a little bit about all these cameos, but at least in first viewing, they're a lot of fun. So they go through it. Were there any other Wolverine cameos?
There were two other
variants
Wolverine. There was Wolverine in a black suit in like a fiery alleyway. So clearly some sort of dystopian world-ending thing, and he's just like chilling in an alley, and Deadpool walks up and he kills him. And then the only other, I think that's from a comic too. And then the only other one I remember was brown and yellow suit Wolverine. Deadpool shows up in the middle of like a battlefield, and he sees Wolverine, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you're wearing the brown suit. That's from that time you fought the Hulk." And then like Wolverine shows his claws, and in the reflection is the Hulk standing behind him, and he's like, he's like, "Oh, the Hulk's standing behind me, isn't he?" And when he turns around, he says, he's like, I'm Marvel Jesus, you big son of a," and then he like hits him, and I don't know, funny. I like that scene.
That was a fun sequence. But either way, he finds a Logan. He comes back to the TVA, and without going through all the details, they basically ban them both or send them off.
And this
into
Logan
this purgatory
sucks.
landscape.
Apparently, this Logan like ruined his entire timeline or his entire world not because I mean they explain it, but he wasn't a bad guy per se, but he was negligent, and his negligence got like all of the X-Men killed. So that's why he's like, I don't know. They make him sound like an outcast, but he's chilling at that bar at the beginning. So I don't know how dystopian his world is. Maybe it's not as bad as they made it seem, but
it was bad to him because all of his friends and people he cared about are dead. So I think that's part of his issue. And he's kind of dragged. He's dragged along because Deadpool has convinced him that, hey, if you come with me, the TVA can fix your timeline, which is a lie, and that kind of leads to some other stuff. But that's why they kind of end up buddy copying through the whole movie. Either way, they get sent to this purgatory landscape. I don't remember if it had a name. It probably was actually in the Loki shows, and I can't remember what it was. Just the Void, that's right.
The Void, yeah.
And for the next, most of the movie, they're just trying to get out of the Void now, so they can get back to the timelines and fix things.
We got to see a couple things right at the beginning of them getting to the Void. We see the 20th Century Fox logo is just sitting in the middle of the desert. And then we get a very interesting cameo. Before we get to the cameos, hold on. Yeah.
So just to kind of preface it, because that 20th Century Fox drop there really kind of paints the picture for this whole movie. This movie is a love letter to the Fox Marvel movie. So before the MCU was a thing, when you had stuff like all the X-Men movies prior to MCU, of course prior to Disney buying out Fox, you had like Daredevil and Elektra and Blade and
the original Deadpools. Deadpool 1 and 2 were technically Fox.
Yeah, and there were a few others kind of filtered
X-Men,
in there. I'm not sure.
Days of Future Past.
Yeah, all the X-Men movies.
Origins,
and they do
Wolverine.
have some other. Yep, I'm trying to go beyond even just the X-Men stuff. They do have some other ones filtered into that I don't think were all Fox, like the Punisher. I don't think all those were Fox, and a few others, but I guess in a broader sense, it's all non-MCU related Marvel movies that kind of were around prior to Disney buying everybody up. So that is really where a lot of the cameos kind of stem from. If you haven't watched any of those X-Men or prior MCU Marvel movies, I'm curious how this movie's going to land for you.
Yeah.
Like, And to be fair, think about it. I mean, besides some of the X-Men stuff, because those movies were going on relatively recently, because Fox and Disney were different entities.
Most of
But
those
if you go
movies
back and
were
think like Elektra and
more often
Blade
bad
and
than yeah.
well, I'm not talking about bad, but think about the demographic of a lot of kids now. Like, if you think about a kid who was born when Iron Man came out, they're now a teenager. Their whole life has been MCU Marvel.
Yeah.
They weren't around watching Elektra and Daredevil and like these, early 2000s Marvel movies. So to them to see these characters, would they care? Would it like this movie could fall a lot flatter depending on your association with those movies. So just keep that in mind. I'm assuming that people who are watching this movie get that by now. If they care about Wolverine as or Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, they're probably more attuned to those movies. But
That's
just
like
want to throw
us.
that out there. Sorry.
That's like us growing up with having George Clooney as our Batman for the longest time. Unfortunately.
Val Kilmer.
Well,
I like Kilmer. No, that's a different conversation.
well, yeah, I won't go off on a tangent on there, but
Let's do it.
But yeah, so as we talked about the 20th century, next up, so Wolverine. That's actually a really cool scene. Yeah, Wolverine and Deadpool begin to go at it. Because Wolverine's been pulled into this horrible landscape, and Deadpool's just kind of continuing his jokes. They start going at it in a really cool battle. I remember what I liked about that fight is the first time we've seen maybe Logan go on all fours. I think he goes on all fours and is like crawling around. This is really cool, I thought. And then we get almost like a Mad Max type scene that kind of happens as we get some vehicles that begin to show up. And there's even a direct reference to Furiosa, which I thought was kind of funny from Deadpool. And so all these showing up, and then we have one sole hero that all of these cars are here to get. And there's a superhero slam or a landing that person does, and it's Chris Evans, and all of us in the theater are like, "Oh, it's Cap," and Deadpool is
and
like,
to be fair, like because he's wearing like this cloak,
he's wearing like
when
a cloak,
he pulls his
and it's a
arm
blue
out,
costume.
you see there's a blue suit under it, like oh, this is gonna be Captain America Returns.
And Deadpool's like, he's gonna say it, he's gonna say Avengers Assemble, and instead all you hear is Flame On. And yeah, so he does Flame On, takes off, and he gets what I think Pyro kind of like has happens to be there, and Pyro like takes away all of his powers or something. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But who was there? There to capture him was Toad, Sabretooth, who dies almost immediately to Wolverine.
The Sabretooth from the first X-Men
from the very
movie too,
first
not
one.
the was it the Schreiber one?
Yeah, Leaf Schreiber. But so it was Sabretooth, it was Pyro, it was Toad. I think that was the only three.
There was a handful. A lot of them weren't really prominent at that moment. There was kind of background. I will say that the Chris Evans cameo was my favorite for a bunch
We're
of
big
reasons.
Chris Evans fans already, but Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I think for one, most people didn't think he'd be back in an MCU movie, period. Like, he was done with Captain America. So to get him back, period, I think was fun. To acknowledge the Fantastic Four, Johnny Storm stuff, and just the oddity that it's the same actor in this universe now being both characters.
They didn't even have to pitch that to him. They were probably like, "We want you to come back as Johnny," and he's like, "Okay." Ryan Reynolds is there.
There's some tweet or remark he made that he was like super in love with the idea of coming back, so it probably wasn't that hard to pull him into it. But it was great. That was probably my favorite cameo in the whole thing, just because of I liked him as Johnny Storm back in the day, because Johnny Storm is such a different character from Captain America. He's kind of this D-bag, self-absorbed character from most of the Fantastic movies, composed to, Captain America, all American, super patriot, good guy forever motif. So that's just fun to now see them both technically in the same universe as both characters. That was fun.
So from here on out, I don't know, we don't have to go through every single scene. I at least feel like going through the first handful. I mean, what happens next is they end up going to this this compound made from the bones of Ant-Man, which was another cool cameo. And from there, you meet our villain, who is a new character who I'd never heard of, called, who is it, Cassandra Nova? And all it turns out is that she is just twins. I can't think of the word.
She's Xavier's twin sister from in the womb.
In the womb, yeah. Now, one thing I will ask you is, I wrote in my notes, but they said something that she tried to strangle Xavier in the womb with the umbilical cord. I didn't get the rest of it? Was she successful? Because I know X is dead in her world. So did she kill Professor X?
I don't know enough about Cassandra No, but like I know her in name alone pretty much. I know she's a new Marvel Snap card. That's about all I got for you.
Because she has the
I'll tell
same
you,
skill set as him. The only difference is that she has to touch the mind rather than not touch, which
I will say, and it's not that I think she was bad in this movie. I thought she was an odd choice to bring in. Maybe because they wanted a very particular power set to write them out of the situation they were in. They needed somebody who could kind of like open up worlds, but she didn't even really do that. Like she used Doctor Strange's ability to get out. So it could have been any other character barring any power. I don't know. I feel like she was honestly probably the weaker part of the movie. If I had to nitpick something story plot related, I thought how cool it would have been if we would have had some other, once again, Fox earlier before MCU Marvel villain in here, a Magneto. I mean, sure, it probably was impossible to get.
she said she killed Magneto in
McKellen?
this one. I think Ian McKellen. Yeah,
That's
she
what
said she killed him and
but
destroyed his helmet.
they probably said that though, so because they probably couldn't get him. But it would have been a lot
Maybe.
cooler if they could have got him, right? Like they probably
Well,
couldn't
they could
get
have
a
gotten
villain that.
They could have gotten Fassbender too. I mean, Fassbender or Ian McKellen would have been cool.
That would have been cool, yeah. Like, and not just Magneto. I'm sure there's some other villains. I mean, those are just the stronger ones I could think of. And I do hate to make it all X-Men.
Fassbender might have actually been really cool. I don't know. I'm kind of liking that. I'm kind of liking the idea of Fassbender too.
That would have been a fun one. So I don't know. It could have been more there. Or they could have done like an evil Professor X and had not Patrick Stewart. What was the
guy
the younger
from Split?
actor?
I don't remember his.
Yeah,
McAvoy, James McAvoy. I think. I don't know why I know his name. Surprised I remember.
And I don't know comic book wise if there is much of a premise for a or precedent for a evil Professor X. But I'm sure there is. Or some reason to skew.
If not, that's a cool place to start it. Then that could have been a cool place to begin it.
So I feel like that could have added a little more to it. To be fair, maybe they didn't want to have that dynamic because they want the main dynamic to be Deadpool Wolverine. If you have too strong of an antagonist, maybe they're worried that would take too much away. I don't know. I'm kind of, once again, playing devil's advocate with myself. But I do think Cassandra Nova, a little weak, at least as a new character, not even played by like a familiar actress in these roles. So,
what'd you think about her ripping off of the dude's skin, his
Johnny
entire
Storm's skin.
body?
Oh man,
pretty brutal way to kill him.
Gruesome. Yeah, she has some moments where she is brutal with a lot of the characters. Granted, this is a brutal movie. As I said, it is. It was rated R, right?
Rated R,
if it wasn't, then
it was definitely rated R.
Super gory, in some very uncomfortable ways. But yeah, Johnny dies by getting his whole skin ripped off and then just splatters in a puddle. And there's other moments like that. But I don't know, there are probably some more cameos in that segment, but most of them are very quick. Like we did see that it was what's his name for Toad?
Ray
Darth
Park.
Maul.
Ray
Park. Apparently it was him, but it was so blink and you miss it kind of thing.
He looked like all CGI to me, so I thought that was hard to see.
Well, he had his goggles on. He was like in the background,
Mm-hmm.
and there could have been more that we missed too. Like a lot of them could have been just very like, I'm here for like a very quick cameo and then out. Pyro from X2 had a fairly large cameo, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think if there's anything else. They had a lot of other characters in there, but not necessarily portrayed by their cameo actors. Like they had Psylocke, but it wasn't Olivia Munn. There were a few others, I thought, at least in that segment.
Oh, we had Juggernaut. Juggernaut was there.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the original guy. Yeah, totally different guy. Yeah, I think that's about it for all the people that were there from what I can remember. For now. There will be more. But, so let's see.
I don't remember where they go from there, right? They get out of that complex, like on.
They eventually get to Handsome Pool.
Like a Sentinel Fist or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
They eventually get to Handsome and Dog Pool, and then they're another one of the great scenes. I mean, I guess we could real quick. Handsome Pool and Dog Pool. I thought it was all right. It's kind of funny. I thought Handsome was fine.
There's a lot of Deadpool variants in here. Some are more hit or miss than others, but they're all fun moments.
He was more of a avenue of this our Deadpool wanting the guns because he's got the golden guns. Plus, I guess he wants Dogpool too.
I think it was more of a moment to kind of riff on Ryan Reynolds'
Yeah.
handsomeness.
Maybe.
I think more than anything else. But I mean, there were fun moments with that. That led to them getting this
Honda
minivan
Odyssey
from
That was one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
which was its own
Honda.
joke.
Yeah.
They have a fight inside the Honda Odyssey, which is it's crazy, and the choreography that went into moving around in this Odyssey for this fight scene was pretty wild.
I gotta say,
lots of fun action sequences throughout the whole movie.
The argument between Wolverine and Deadpool before the Odyssey fight is pretty great. Like, Wolverine is like really giving it to a Deadpool. He's like, he cuts into him so hard that Deadpool is just his only quip in the back is that he's like, I'm gonna fight you now. it was pretty funny, pretty great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole choreography is all super great. That's one of the better scenes, and then next thing you know, they're getting.
And once again, the whole movie is just moving them from action scene to cameo, action scene to like when you really think about. Now that I'm really actually sitting down thinking about the flow of this movie, it is really cameo scene, fight scene, cameo scene, fight scene. That is 90% of this movie, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think I was talking to you about this when we were talking about how they moved from one scene to another. I think you didn't like the way they resolved a moment that we'll get to in a moment. I don't think this movie cares. Once again, this movie's not about, we said this earlier, about the plot. Like, there is a plot. The stakes, I said, I think feel pretty low, but it's about enjoying the moment. So whatever they have to do to give you a fun moment and then have enough story thread just to get you to the next one, that's all this movie's really trying to do. So once again, keep that in mind. If you're coming to watch this movie for some great story-driven or character-driven narrative, that you will not get. Not that there aren't any interesting character moments, period, but this is about the jokes, the action, and really the cameos. They really kind of hold up this movie in a lot of ways. I think that's the next scene, actually, right? After we get done with the Honda Odyssey.
X-23, as it turns out, hops in the Honda Odyssey, drives them away to some hidden base or something, and as our heroes kind of wake up, they are greeted by nonetheless of who is it? It was Elektra, who was played by Jennifer Gardner, of course. We had Gambit, as you mentioned, by Channing Tatum, and then we also had Wesley Snipes, Blade, which was pretty shocking. That was another one of those shocking parts. And then we even get Punisher and Daredevil references that they were a part of the Void at some point. Yeah.
I feel like most of those references were there because I bet they reached out to those actors, got to know, and they just wanted some reason to write them in.
Ben Affleck was probably like, no.
I think he's not doing so well right now. I think he's got some personal issues. I don't know. But I would have loved to see Daredevil. I'll tell you, this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I love the original Daredevil movie from
I haven't seen it since it came out, so
it's not that it's good. I think it was marketed to me. Like, I was that 15-year-old alt-runk high school kid, and that's just the tone of this movie. So
Michael Clark Duncan is the only
best way.
Good thing I remember.
Freaking Colin Farrell as Bullseye.
I forgot.
Could have had him in this movie. That would have been fun. But either way, it was fun to see those characters again. Garner, even though I think it's cool because a lot of these characters were in subpar movies. Like the Elektra movie from the early 2000s, not well received. This kind of gives her a bit of redemption in a way. Her character is in a quote-unquote better movie, and once again, I'm not going to dig into the Elektra movie too much, but it was neat to see them revise in this way and almost have a little reverence for the characters that did not exist.
She actually was kind of a cool character. She was like, she wasn't treated as jokily as Gambit. Like, she was more of a seriously taken hero versus Channing Tatum yoking it up as with the worst Cajun accent you can imagine.
See, I loved that because
I loved it, but it was terrible.
I think the way that cameo inclusion goes, it was after X-Men Wolverine. They had some, I can't remember the guy's name. Another actor played Gambit in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie.
I don't remember who.
But then they were going to make, I know he was in Friday Night Lights, the TV show, but that's a sidebar. But they were going to then make a Gambit origin movie. They were going to have a whole bunch of origin movies back in the day, but the Wolverine one was so bad they dropped all work on him. But Channing Tatum had been cast as Gambit in those movies. Everybody was pretty excited about it, but he never got the chance. So I think he was also really excited based upon some tweets he put out to have given the opportunity again. I think he did overly ham it up with the Louisiana jab.
He's actually, I forgot, he's a meme now too, like on
Mhm.
Instagram. The scene where they're going out to battle, and he's like, yeah, now y'all remember this here. We're gonna be remembered for this fight for the rest of our lives. And now all of a sudden, people are using that of him. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it was fun. I think out of those though, my favorite was Wesley Snipes' Blade for a couple of reasons.
He
One,
wasn't
Wesley
as
Snipes.
snappy as the
Hmm?
original. He wasn't as snappy as his original
Oh
Blade
yeah,
self, but he
but
was
he's
still fun.
old. He's like what in
Yeah,
his? How old is he?
probably
He's got to be in his
50s,
60s.
probably 50, late 50s, I would
I'm
think.
gonna check real quick. I'm really curious. Wesley Snipes,
He's got to be, yeah,
because
you're
he's
right,
been
late 50s, early
around.
60s, somewhere around there.
Where is it? It only says it right here. 62.
Oof,
62. So, and he looked
goodness.
thin, a little frailer, but Wesley Snipes, I think, as an actor, still has a bit of gravitas in some ways. So seeing him back and willing to do this was cool. Also, it ties into Ryan Reynolds in a cool way because Blade Trinity
Oh
had
yeah, yeah.
Ryan Reynolds as the other character. So there was a cool dynamic there when you think about it. And then of course you had X-23 brought in from the Logan movie. She's grown up now too. I know you said you didn't like this as much,
I
but they
liked it
do end up
after
having a
talking to you.
scene.
You phrased it a little bit better. The reason why I didn't like it is I just didn't think it made a heck of a whole lot of sense how she said it. Because Logan's just like, I'm not the guy you're looking for. I'm not the guy you think I am. And she's like, you never are. And I didn't understand that. And
Yeah,
you kind of
so
phrased it that like, because he's Logan, he most of the time is not the good guy, makes the wrong decisions,
mm,
but in the end, he always makes the right decision and is the hero, and he just doesn't realize that from his other timelines that he. I don't know. I'll let you. Sorry.
that's okay. Well, here's what I like about it. So there's a scene where a Logan goes off on his own. X-23 comes up behind him. And they have a little chat. What I liked about it is we already talked at the beginning how they kind of threw out the ending of Logan with any reverence just by digging up his old grave. You're like, well, I guess that's how they're gonna end the Logan legacy. This almost recloses it out. You have another moment with Logan. Granted, it's a different Logan, but it's a Logan, and X-23 having another moment to once again kind of cap that story off. So I think that added reverence back to that movie again. And it was fitting, I thought. Like her point, as Chaz was saying, was he was all bummed out because he was a terrible Logan. Her point was that all the Logans are terrible. And if you watch the Logan movie, he wasn't great. That was the
Yeah.
Logan from all the other X-Men movies who screwed up a bunch of times. But it's all about continuing then to, try to do better. And that's how it ended. So it was short. There wasn't a lot to it, but it was a nice minute scene that just once again added a little cap back to the Logan movie and just add a nice little character moment for Logan, help push him once again into the next scene. So that's really all this movie was trying to do.
There is one
I think
other
that's
part. There's one other part that I just want to throw in is as they're approaching, they all get convinced to go on a final suicide mission to go take on
mm,
Cassandra, and as they're approaching the base, Blade Wesley Snipes makes the quote, I'm the only Blade there ever will be," and I just thought it was funny because like I couldn't tell, like it was obviously funny because it's like I couldn't tell if they were referencing that and making a joke in the fact that there is secretly a Blade movie in production with a new Blade,
that's not
or
secret.
well, yeah, but I couldn't tell if that was the joke, or I couldn't tell if the joke was that movie's in development heck, and he may actually be the only Blade there ever will be. You know what I mean? I don't think
I think it's
Disney would
both.
make that kind of joke out of
I
a
think they
movie
would.
they're trying to make. Really? Yeah.
I think they would. Well, this movie makes fun of their other movies. Like that's the whole point of it. Like,
I
and they can get
guess.
away with it because of Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's once again you're making fun of yourself in the safest possible way. Um, but no, I think that was a dig at the current
At the
situation
movie
with them trying to
situation. Okay. I think that's
yeah,
more
them trying
funny.
to
Yeah.
revive Blade. And I thought that's cool. And not that I think Wesley Snipes will come back as Blade, but it's just a funny thought that that movie may not even get off the ground. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's all we're gonna have is Wesley Snipes,
I think
which
that's
is
more
not the worst
funny.
thing.
That's a more funny joke
Yeah.
done, I think.
Let's see. So they go to Cassandra
Oh, forget
Nova.
to
They
say
have a fight with
Pyro.
her.
I forget to say Pyro is in the background working with Paradox. He apparently was brought there, so he's not technically a member of the Void, but he's trying to kill Cassandra for some reason.
This is all.
Yeah.
as I said, this is to me, and I think I know you really want to go through the plot. It matters so little
It
to
doesn't
me,
matter.
like because that's not the point of it. Like, yes, they have some reasons for why Pyro is kind of double was it uh, can't think backstabbing Cassandra Nova and stuff like
Hmm.
that, but really it's just a point so they can get to Cassandra Nova, have a reason for her to
It's
help
just
them,
a
and then
reason to
get
get
them
a.
back to the main world.
It all is just the whole purpose of it is just to get that one scene where she digs into Logan's mind and he begins to talk about what else he did in his timeline
Mhm.
after he was late to saving his X-Men friends, because apparently he says that like he went on to like kill a bunch of people who did the atrocity, and then he kept killing. So apparently he did a lot of extra bad stuff. So that's that whole point of just getting to that whole thing. But
Sure.
and then what they kind of
Either
they use
they
what's the
get
Juggernaut's
back,
helmet? Yeah.
they use the helmet, so she can't be all psychic, and they basically not trick her, but bribe her into getting them home, using a Doctor Strange portal gauntlet or knuckles or whatever they're called. But she helps them get home. It's once again because she wants to get there too for some plot reasons to destroy the world, etc., etc. But I don't know. Most of that was not overly interesting to me. They
She
get
wasn't a
back though,
terribly deep
and
character. Now that like I'm thinking on it,
mhm.
I just mean
Well, I
she
guess my
wasn't
point is,
terribly deep. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to the next scene, Chaz. Come on.
Oh, go ahead. No, sorry.
So the next, once again, scene they're trying to get to action-wise is the 1,000 Deadpool variants. So they get back to the main timeline to try to finalize this whole, plot issue. And Cassandra Nova has basically dumped all these Deadpool variants in their way to
Why?
stop them.
Why was that the one thing she pulled to stop those two? Why couldn't she? Why wouldn't she grab a
Why does it
Hulk or
matter?
something?
You're thinking too much, Chaz, because that was the funniest thing. I
Well,
thought. Oh,
I could get. Yeah,
okay,
you're
so
right.
they fight
You're
the
right.
Hulk. Cool. Like, I think the point was they wanted to riff on all. And this whole movie was very variant based, right? Like all the Wolverine variants. So this was an opportunity for them to go through all the Deadpool variants, and there's too many of them. And unless you're a really deep Deadpool
There
fan, you're
was a
not going to care
baby
about every
pool.
cut there.
It was a baby pool, and
Yeah,
apparently the blonde pool was his wife, or voiced by his
yeah,
wife, I
Blake.
think.
So it was just a fun moment
Ryan
to see
Reynolds, I
all
should
these
say.
different Deadpool variants. They had the floating head
I don't know
variant.
what that was. There was a Western pool,
Yeah.
but
So it was just so they got a big fight scene with all these
we should
Deadpools.
say what leads up to that, or what happens during that, is one of the better scenes of the movie. Is the scene where Handsome Pool gets
Oh yeah.
demolished by Ryan or by Deadpool, and we knew it's going to happen the whole time because we've seen this throughout this entire movie. Our Deadpool wants those guns and he wants Dogpool. So what's the one thing he wants to do is kill Handsome Pool. So he essentially uses him as a shield and gets him killed, basically. And he's like the
If
only
you listen to
one.
this, there's definitely some story stuff we left out in that
Yeah,
relationship, but it'll give you something to still watch the movie for, I suppose. But it was a fun moment how we just utilizes Handsome Pool as a human meat shield.
he
Yeah,
gets shot. And he's like, "You're gonna regenerate. You'll be fine." And he's like, "Regenerate? What's that?"
he's the one Deadpool that
He's
doesn't
the one
regenerate.
that doesn't regenerate. So
Yeah.
stupid. That was a pretty great scene though,
But
where they fight the Deadpools. Kind of fun.
yeah, it's supposed to be like a one-shot fight scene as they kind of
Mm-hmm.
go from down the street, watch them fight through a city bus and all this other stuff. It's a little self-indulgent, I suppose, but it was fun. I said this movie is about giving you a fun scene, a funny scene, a fun scene, a funny scene. A lot of times they're mixed up, but the glue getting you there is not the most important thing.
Who
So they get past this big Deadpool fight.
who shows up to save the day? I was gonna say
Oh, what was his name? Peter?
Peter.
Uh,
Because apparently Peter shows up, and apparently in every universe, Peter is like the favorite person of Deadpool. I guess is like the thing, and he shows up with his bulge, and they're all like, "Hey, Peter," and they all just go crazy celebrating him, and they sneak off
Yeah.
while they're doing that.
Yeah, I know this initially I think made you a little upset. Like that was a stupid way to end that moment,
Eh,
but as I said, it's not
it's
about
not about,
how
yeah,
you get from one to another. Like, because the plot is so thin as it is. Like they wanted to give you this cool moment that had all these Deadpool variants.
and
You
it was
got
cool.
that. You enjoyed the fight scene. what would they have done more than that? Stretch it out for another 5 minutes? Though they did enough to make it fun, and they gave a reason to move beyond it to the next thing.
No.
The next thing is their big kind of pseudo showdown with Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra is trying to use some machine to destroy all the timelines that is created. You don't need to know. I loved this whole end scene because before they go in, Deadpool and Wolverine have this conversation about, because apparently they have to make a connection between two sides of the machine in order to destroy it or something, and apparently only
it's going to kill whoever
goes down and does it. And there's a great scene of Wolverine just saying, like, I don't have anything left, let me go and do it. And then at the last second, Deadpool runs ahead of him, closes the door behind him, and declares that he's going to be the one to do it because it's his timeline to save. And super funny is I love how Deadpool is like messing with Wolverine through the door. He's like doing like the step thing, and then he does like the Superman flying in front of him in front of the door. He sits there for like 20 seconds just like joking with Wolverine.
Stupid, childish little jokes just to piss him off. Yeah,
pretty funny. And then so what ends up happening?
Oh, go ahead.
We're good. No, I was gonna say Deadpool ends up getting connected. Ipso facto, he ends up not being able to reach the other side. So who ends up breaking down the door and getting to the other side, helping him finish the connection? Ends up being Logan. And there's another great scene here of what happens here exactly. I remember the great scene is when it finally. I think they have like a flashback, don't they? Before they. I don't remember what happens here.
I can't remember now. I just know they're holding hands.
I know they're holding
hands.
Yeah, Wolverine's clothes get destroyed, and you see Deadpool looking
except
at
for
his
his mask.
Except for his mask.
Which I think because you were asking, do you think those are really xmen's abs? And the answer is absolutely not.
No.
He had the mask on so the whole time. It was just his ripped chest. So like they totally had body double or something there, which that's fine.
That could have been Jackman like 15 years ago, but
Oh sure.
But maybe not now.
But the ending of the movie just kind of like pops out really fast. Like that happens. Cassandra Nova gets destroyed, I think.
Even though it's very fast, like there's little parts of it I love. So it's like I appreciated almost all of the end part. I don't know.
Yep. Wolverine stays in the timeline with them. They kind of separate. Deadpool goes back to all his friends who their timeline's been saved somehow. They didn't really define why. They're just like, you did it, Deadpool. You saved your own timeline, even though we said you couldn't. And that's pretty much the movie, right? Was there anything else we're really missing towards the end? I didn't think we'd go through a whole plot summary, but we did.
What happens at the end? Yeah, they end up going to the guy. He ends up, they get sent. There's the final scene in the apartment. Did you mention that? I totally was looking at my notes. The final scene in the apartment.
What happens in the apartment?
Logan and Logan X-23 are hanging out, and then the relationship with Vanessa gets rekindled, basically.
Yeah, so it's all very, yay, happy end of story thing. There's a fun little mid-credit scene, which I don't think we should even bother spoiling, because I loved it.
It was great.
It was good. You'd have to over-explain some more jokes, and I think we spoiled enough of this. Like, it's still fun to watch. So even though we've gone through, I think, a lot of the big elements.
Talked about what we liked.
Still worth watching.
It's a really fun time.
It was fun. As I said, good. If you have the right expectations for this movie, know what you're getting into, you're gonna have a good time. I will say this. Got a couple of negatives. I think I already mentioned Cassandra Nova being meh. Here's my one issue with it, and honestly, us spoiling some of these cameos might actually be an issue for your enjoyment of the movie. This movie has a lot of cameos. And a lot of the moments they were like, wow, that was fun, were the cameos. Watching this movie again or knowing all the cameos are coming on a first viewing is definitely going to take the wind out of your sails. Like, I can't imagine me enjoying this as much the second time. I know you're going to go see it tomorrow, again, with, like, your nephews and stuff, so let me know if you still have the same feeling. And it might help if you're seeing with other people that are seeing it for the first time.
That's why I want to see it with them, is because they're going to enjoy
this thing's about to come.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, when you watch this, 6 months from now when it's out on Blu-ray, will it be as good? Because I tell you, I had this issue with what was it? Spider-Man: No Way Home, which had all the big villain cameos. You get Green Goblin back, and Doc Ock, and Sandman, and Andrew Garfield, Toby. Like, everybody's back from all the old movies. First time you see it, awesome. I watched it again. I'm like, okay, that was fine because you know everything's coming. Then you're just evaluating it on the story alone at that point. And at least for me, that Spider movie fell a lot flatter after that. Still not bad, but you know, it was not what it was. This movie, I think, will suffer that to a certain extent because one, the plot, as I've said now way too many times, is not the most crucial thing. If the plot's a little lacking, the cameos are lacking. What you're left with now are the
Still
jokes
some great fight
and
scenes.
yeah, the action. I think that's always going to hold up. I mean, if you like good action scenes, there's still going to be good action
Yeah,
scenes.
the scene in the
Jokes,
Odyssey is still great. Yeah.
yeah. I think jokes though they'll get flatter the more you hear them, unless you just absolutely love this humor and that's just what you want to
And
hear all the
but a
time.
lot of
So
this humor is going to be dependent on people knowing the state of Marvel at this time and where this movie sits. And as time goes on, people are going to forget about 20th Century Fox and forget about, you know, some of the other stuff. So maybe some of those jokes won't hit 20 years from now, you know. People will be like, what do you mean? What was the issue? What's 20th Century Fox? You know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah, so I said this movie is going to be successful for the moment. Long term, its impact is going to be hard. Like I'm sure I'll watch it again 10 years from now and I'll get some chuckles out of it, but I don't think it's going to hold up quite as well. As I said, because not everybody's even going to have the references to the X-Men stuff, like you were saying, the Fox stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or the cameos are just kind of overly done. They're spoiled at that point. So doesn't mean you shouldn't go watch it if our spoilers have not, you know, completely ruined it for you. I still think there's plenty to enjoy on a first watching. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to beat it to death too much more
No,
than
I'm
that.
not going to
I guess
disagree.
my last kind of questions for you. What's the future for Deadpool? Will there be a Deadpool 4? Will we see Deadpool go up against Robert Downey Jr.
That's one of
in
my
the
questions I
Doomsday
have.
Avengers?
Yeah. What's next for Deadpool? I don't feel as though he should play an integral role in any of the future movies. Now, I do feel as though there almost has to be references, right? Or maybe cameos. Like he can show up periodically, but
That's
I don't. Meh, maybe. I don't feel like in the comics though he's like a super. He's not a world destroyer. You know, he can revive and he has his swords, but like he's not really gonna help out against Galactus or Thanos or anything like that.
like the question I would have is what would be the benefit
Or
of
Doom.
having
Is he gonna help
him
with Doom?
in any future movies? Like
Jokes.
tonally, but even then, are his jokes that we've seen gonna carry over well into the modern MCU? Like if Deadpool just popped into the next Fantastic Four movie, how would that feel? Even if it's just for a quick moment. Like it would be such a jarring tone shift, I think, that I don't know if that's gonna benefit anything. I'd say he could, you know, fight alongside the Avengers, but why? I don't know. I kind of feel like he's always going to need to be relegated to this side or, you know, self-contained set of movies. Like there could be a Deadpool 4. I wouldn't put that completely out of the question. I don't really foresee him getting involved much with the MCU, you know, in full as far as like popping into other franchise or IPs or hopping into Avengers. I feel like that would be a very awkward character to shoehorn in there.
And not to, you know, run away from that, but like I almost feel like it's almost I'm a little more interested in knowing like what the future is for Jackman and what goes on here because like he's not I want to say elderly, that's mean. He's advanced in his age at this point and playing this character and playing this
Advanced.
character probably takes a lot of working out and stuff like that. I could not imagine he would this movie felt like a swan song, right? It felt like a thank you.
Well, he
You were
said, yeah, I mean, he said back, it's popped up now a few times, I think, in the marketing of this movie, like when Logan was coming out,
he was done.
X amount of years
Yeah,
ago. Yeah, and he felt good about it. Like, I feel like this is great closure to this character. He was ready to hang up the claws then.
but then 40
And then I think it
million.
was like 2 or 3 days after. Well, no, I think it was like 2 or 3 days after is when the first Deadpool came up. And he was like, "Oh, I should have hung out," because he apparently, and this once again is all hearsay in Hollywood, but apparently he really wanted to do a team up with Deadpool, Wolverine and Deadpool. It was apparently him who reached out to Ryan Reynolds
Hmm.
and tried to get this off the ground. Now I don't know how true any of that is. It's all Hollywood interviews, but It sounded like he wanted this last chance.
I didn't know that.
I feel like he's gotten everything he wants out of the character now, because he already felt like the character was good in Logan. So he's done with the character. He probably just wanted this team up. He's got it. I don't think he would probably have a whole lot of interest in pursuing. I mean, money is always, a pretty good motivator, but there's, I'm sure, a point where I want to say you have enough, but maybe not. But he's got other projects he could certainly, spend his time with. I think he would want to be done. Now, speaking for someone I don't even know, but I don't even know if Marvel would want him, to be honest. I mean, besides bringing him back, and
Marvel
yes,
wants
he's
to
a big
look
name,
down the line.
he's got to be costly.
Yeah.
They're going to want something fresh, I imagine. Like, they're revamping the Fantastic Four. It's not like they're bringing Jessica Alba back to be, Invisible Woman again. I imagine they'll do the same thing with X-Men. And the multiverse gives them that blank slate. They can do whatever they want. They could always bring him back for a cameo whenever they feel it, but he is aged up. I mean, they're going to need someone who can be very active in another Wolverine role. And not that he can't be. Clearly, looking at these action scenes, he was very, very capable, but I don't know. I think Disney's going to want a fresh face, and I think so will Jackman. So,
I agree. Gosh, a couple of random questions I had. Vanessa, is she really all that necessary in this? I don't know. I don't really feel like that character. I guess maybe she's still there to kind of.
It was the only motivation he had.
Motivation and to kind of ground the character somewhat.
This is why I said that the stakes of the movie feel really low. Like, so technically, yes, there is the risk of all of his friends being wiped from existence. But when you really sit and think about his friends, so?
Yeah, I agree.
You got Colossus. It's not like he was best friends with Colossus.
But that's what I'm saying is Deadpool's like the kind of character that, like, it's just like, is she necessary? I mean, I guess. I guess he needs a love. Yeah, a love. Person.
What other stakes would he have? Like, Vanessa is the closest he's got, and I guess that was another one of my, I think, cons about it, was the friends were his only stakes, and they seem pretty low. I mean, maybe to him personally, if you think back on all three movies, they mean more, I suppose. But yeah, they weren't overly necessary. You probably could have written them out, given some other world-ending stakes, and probably have been just fine.
No, I agree. What did you think? Just, I don't know if we did answer, but what did you think of his suit? Do you think he looked good in the full yellow with the mask? This is the first time we're seeing Jackman in the full costume.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's changed so much since the first X-Men movie, where I think everybody was still a little embarrassed to be a superhero in a comic book movie. They had to cool it up a little bit. We've now gone full comic book. That is the biggest type of franchise out there. So I think seeing somebody in a super suit doesn't really have the same negative connotation. So I think it looked good on him. The mask was a little.
There was some
cheesy.
CGI with the mask at times.
Well, they did the Deadpool eyes, the white eyes, which is really cool. I think it does make it look. It's weirder because Deadpool is all suit, including the lower side of his face. So I don't think it looks as awkward. With Jackman, you've still got his jaw, and then the CG mask with the eyes, and it's a little more awkward, but. It was fun.
Good.
Once again, it was like cool to see him in there. It didn't look bad. I don't think it looked overly cheesy. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah. I only had one other thing I wanted to mention. Somehow some guy fell asleep in our theater. That was one thing we had to deal with. Luckily, you didn't hear the guy? There was a guy snoring all throughout our movie. I definitely noticed it. I wanted to run in the back wherever he was and stomp on the floor or something.
Man, how could you fall asleep in this movie?
It was
something we saw a late showing. We was like a 4:30 or something.
Opening weekend of Deadpool. How do you fall asleep during that? But yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
That's funny.
I feel like we ran through everything I cared about talking about. Sheesh. For once.
Yeah. Fun movie. I think now looking back on it, if you did stick around and you watched all this, I think spoiling it is probably going to take some of the fun out of it. I still think first watch, there's definitely some fun stuff. We definitely didn't spoil all the jokes. And the cameos, yeah, we ruined those for you. Sorry about that. But the jokes, I think we'll keep it going. The action will keep you going. It's a solid showing. Hopefully we see Deadpool again somehow, some way. Deadpool 4, I don't know.
What is next for Marvel? I mean, obviously they have Doom and everything that they announced, but that's down the line, like what is the next movie in general?
Fantastic Four is next year, I think.
That's the next
And then
movie? That's probably not
I
till
don't know if it's
later in the year.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like isn't this the only Marvel movie this year?
I just mean like
MCU
what is even
release.
the next movie? Like the next show or
I don't
movie?
know. I don't feel like there's much. I'm pulling it up right now so I can tell you. Oh, they have that Agatha All Along show,
Oh.
the spinoff from what you would call it, Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch, yeah. No, I mean I don't mean but
Um,
like that show
no,
was
I mean
good. What was it,
like that.
WandaVision? WandaVision,
That
right?
show was
I
okay.
liked
I
WandaVision.
don't care about watching a whole show with
About
Agatha though.
Agatha
Like
though, yeah.
I don't know who thought that would be great. All right, so here's the upcoming thing.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
Your friendly neighborhoods.
Hold on. Say all that again. Whatever you just said, you
I
cut
lose
out.
you.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I'm pulling the release lineup from IGN.
Oh, real quick before
Agatha
you say.
All Along.
No, as to say, someone in chat said, "Mr. Anti-Idiotic." They said, "I really, really want Kitty Pryde to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man girlfriend in the MCU."
Huh.
I don't even know who Kitty Pryde.
Now,
I know,
see,
I know her from the card game, but
Oh well, she was technically in the X-Men movie. She was played by the Juno actress.
in this movie,
She wasn't in this one, but like the X-Men X3, I think she was in. He was in.
oh, huh.
I'll let you look into that one, but
yeah, I don't know anything about that.
I don't recall in Spidey lore if they ever had a lot of interaction. There was some Spider-Man, X-Men crossover stuff, so maybe that could be interesting. I don't know. I am curious if and when they do a Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland. I don't see that in this list here, by the way. They have some Spider-Man thing, but I think it's a cartoon or something.
So
for
the next
kids.
thing is Agatha.
Eyes of Wakanda. Okay, then the next movie, Captain America: Brave New World, with Falcon.
Oh, Falcon.
And you got
Okay.
Harrison Ford as Red Hulk. There's Daredevil: Born Again. I know they've been trying to work on that show, bringing back is it the original? The original Daredevil, as far as the Netflix show, like that actor, they're trying to get his own series off. So I guess that's this. Something called Thunderbolts, I know nothing about, and then Fantastic Four: First Steps. Then there's Blade, November 7th, 2025. We'll see about that.
I hate to say it, man.
It looks like
I don't think I care about any of that you just rattled off. Other than the Captain, maybe the Captain with the Hulk, but
see, I did not like the Captain America show they had. Or was it Falcon and Winter Soldier? I did not love that show, which makes me less interested in that movie. Fantastic Four, I'm interested in. I think that might be something pretty cool. Blade, we'll have to wait and see. They're doing an Ironheart movie.
that's like Iron Man, right? Iron Man's daughter or something.
She was technically in, was it Wakanda Forever? It was the sequel to Black Panther she was in. And then it's Avengers Doomsday, so that would be Robert Downey, which that's a conversation I don't know if you want to touch base on. Mr. Anti-Idiotic just say Peter and Kitty dated in the Ultimate Universe. Okay, interested.
What's the Ultimate Universe? I don't know what that means.
It was the Ultimate comic line.
Oh, just a specific comic line.
Yeah,
interesting.
I think that's the one. I could be wrong on this. My lore and all that's mixed up. I think that's the one that Miles came out of eventually, but maybe Idiotic in the chat can help me out if my comic lore knowledge is lacking. But yeah, there's the whole Robert Downey conversation. I don't know. Do you want to tack this on, or do you want to leave that the
we
comment?
We can throw it on real quick. I mean, we don't have to. I'm not gonna.
I don't like it. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think that's where a lot of people are at. I think he can do a fine job at it. It just feels like a desperate reach by Marvel. Like you could have given this. Granted,
evil Robert, evil Tony Stark or something, whatever.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they'll have a story that will be fine. Like they'll come up with either it's a Stark variant. I do believe there is a Stark storyline where he does become like a Doctor Doom or something. They'll write something that will make sense. I'm less worried about that, or hopefully make sense. I know writing's been a little iffy as of late with some of these Marvel projects, but it's just why you could give some other actor with enough gravitas to do the character and get a new face up there. I don't know. I think
And
they're just
Robert's not
worried that if
exactly
they don't
young
bring
either.
back.
He's always getting up there.
I just think they worried if they don't have something to bring everybody back in right now, Marvel's gonna fall apart.
They,
And to be fair, they're not necessarily wrong. Like
mhm.
Marvel has been going this way for a long time with numbers and ratings and reviews. This Deadpool movie is really the last beam of light they've had in a very long time that has had any kind of positive reaction. I'm not overly optimistic about the Captain America movie, I'll be honest. Fantastic Four could be good, but that's a year away.
They should have just got the Nip
I don't
Tuck
know.
guy. Brought him back.
Yeah, that doubt. He wasn't terrible. I don't
He
know,
wasn't
but
bad, no.
I don't know. It just feels like a desperate last minute kind of ditch effort to.
I'm not personally
Hey,
interested.
we're still good. We still have great stories to tell.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see what it looks like as they're. That's still such a long way away. They got a lot to do
It's
to
not
kind of
that
build up
far
hype.
away.
What was it? 2025.
So here's
or
the thing.
2026.
It's 2025 for a Fantastic Four, and then Doomsday is 26. Here's the thing, though. I don't think they can just drop Robert Downey in 2026. I think they're going to have to touch base on him in Fantastic Four, which means we'll find out next year, probably, how Downey does, at least in some capacity in the role. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong and I'll see it and I'll love it, but I don't know. I just feel like they could have done something. I know they pitched this as this crazy creative maneuver. That's what the Russo brothers said over a combo. Like, can't believe how cool and creative we're being, bringing back Robert Downey. I feel like that's one of the least creative things they could have done, but I don't know. That's it. We won't have to go deeper unless you want to.
Nah, I'm totally good. I don't even know what else to add. Like, I don't think the Robert Downey thing makes any sense. Oh, Mr. Anti-Idiotic says, yeah, it's the same universe where Miles Morales comes from. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, one, he's older, so it's not like. I mean, I guess he'll be around for a little bit, but like he's also an incredibly expensive actor too. So it's like you couldn't have found
which
somebody
makes me think they are really
super
losing
desperate.
money.
Yeah,
That's what like. I don't know. Everything just leans towards this is a desperate maneuver, not the right necessarily creative choice. Like I know, but to be fair, they don't have the Kang stuff in. I'm sorry, my brain's getting tired now. They don't have the Kang storyline happening anymore because of everything that happened with what's his name. So they probably looked at this as like the perfect moment to pivot, and Robert Downey was there.
I heard somebody throw out. I'm totally remembering. I heard somebody on a podcast the other day throw out that they thought, what's the guy's name from Star Wars? Adam Driver. I heard someone say that they thought he would have been a good Doctor Doom, and I was like, yeah, he could have been really cool. He's a tall, big guy. He's young. You know, you throw a mask on him, he could look kind of cool.
Here's the issue with him being young, actually, and this is actually a point maybe towards Robert Downey.
He has to be the same age as like Pedro and all them.
As Reed, yeah. So if they go that route, like, I mean, they could rewrite the story a little bit where it's like more of a mentorship, but it's always been they were friends growing up or colleagues, or I mean, there's some variations to the story, but very much.
Maybe I just like Adam Driver.
In a lot of ways.
I would have liked to have seen him there,
but they could have found somebody else. Heck, Johnny Depp. I don't know. Of course, I don't know if anybody wants to bring Johnny Depp back. I don't know. I don't know. There's just got to be someone else besides Downey that would bring some seats to the theater and be a different take. So bring Jackman. Let him be Doom. I don't know.
No. Remember, he's got to be.
I don't know, man.
He's got to be Wolverine till he's 90.
That's right. All right, I'll let you wrap this up.
So Skylar Twilight says, "Oh, that's interesting. See, Skylar likes my Adam Driver theory.
It's not a bad idea.
He's already works for Disney. Why not?
Does he anymore, though? I know he's very vocal.
Maybe he had a bad experience.
He's very vocal about not being happy about how that character went in Star Wars. So
Marvel's different than Star Wars, though. That's better ran, I feel like.
Here's what I wish they'd do, and I know it's too big of a train to stop. Like, not Marvel. Disney's two biggest things right now, Marvel and Star Wars, right? Both of them are floundering because, like, they're just, like, throwing everything at the wall. Why don't you give one a break? Give Marvel a year off. Focus just on Star Wars. Do one good Star Wars thing. Then give Star Wars a year off. Do one good Marvel thing. Like, I know they don't want to do that. They want 1,000 projects in the works to, you know, make money where they can. They're doing, like, shotgun approach to everything. But
see, that's the sports EA formula that people have been saying for years. Like the quality of the sports games or Madden is like they pop them out every single year, and it's like how much advancement
Quantity
can you
over
make
quality.
in gameplay when you have a year to work on the game every year? You know, less than a year. It's like.
And even if it's not, split it that drastic, Star Wars one year, Marvel the next. Although I think that would help with some of the fatigue people are having with Disney in general. At least have only one project a year, maybe two, instead of looking at 4, 5, 6. I mean, they pulled back some, but man, and we've already had a lot of projects this year too on both sides of it. Like Disney's had Star Wars that had the Acolyte. I think Ahsoka was earlier this year, unless it was last
Was
year.
it really? I don't remember.
And then Marvel had Loki season 2. Was that this year?
No, that was
Maybe
last year.
Was
that was
it?
definitely
Maybe.
last year.
I don't know. Time blurs together. I'm getting old, man.
I'm getting
See all my
old.
grays.
It's getting late.
It hurts. It is getting late.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, that is I don't know. We talked about what the Acolyte and Wolverine, or Deadpool and Wolverine, two things I really wanted to talk. Once again, if I can get Phoenix to do it, I still would like to talk The Boys. We've talked about every season of The Boys so far, so it might be kind of nice to. Maybe we could do the same thing. Maybe if you could finish Halo, we could do Boys half Halo. Spend 15 minutes on Halo, hopefully.
I'll think about it.
We'll see.
I don't know if I can bear Master Cheeks.
Yeah. You don't see cheeks in
We'll
season 2, at least. They're not there.
Now they're burned into my brain, man. Oh, you might as well be walking around with like buttless chaps in his suit.
He doesn't break any more laws, like sleeping with prisoners. All right.
Did you finish it? You finished season 2 of Halo?
Oh yeah. I finished season 2.
Oh man, better man than I.
Let's see. Mr. Anti-Idiotic in chat says, can you imagine the interaction between Taron Egerton's Wolverine and Tom Holland's Spidey? Taron Egerton, that sounds familiar. Is that the guy that played Elton John?
Yeah, and also in the Kingsman. Like, he's been thrown around as a possible actor for a while.
He doesn't have sideburns. He doesn't count. I don't know.
I think glue him on. He'll be fine. He's got a good look, I think, for it. So I wouldn't be opposed to that.
And he's shorter, isn't he? He's not like super tall.
Yeah, he's a little shorter. He's got a good build on him. He could probably get bulkier. And I do want them to do more Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like, I know you're not the biggest fan of it, but I think there's some gas in that tank if they want to take it the right direction.
Oh, I know who the ultimate Wolverine. You got to get Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito, 2025 Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you. That'd be great.
All right, you guys can tell I'm starting to get getting a little out there. So yeah,
this is great though. We got people in chat though. That was fun. So yeah, please join these chats. It gives us some back and forth, and you can correct us when we're wrong on stuff and call us out on some crap. So please keep joining.
So I don't know, for anybody else down in the comments, let us know what you thought about the Acolyte and what do you think about Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm going to watch Wolverine again tomorrow morning, so haha, take that, Phoenix. Getting to watch it again already.
I get to go to a baby shower. Yay.
Oh.
Yeah. I told you I'm getting old.
I don't think you maybe if you could drink if you were there, but I don't think people tend to drink at baby showers. At least I would hope not, probably. All right, everybody. Well, that is this episode of the ChazmaN podcast. We're wrapped up. Once again, keep an eye out. I'll continue to be doing more streams, and I'm enjoying kind of doing these scheduling for the stream. So I think that's helping out. But Phoenix, did you want to say anything before we head on out?
No, I'm good, guys. It was fun chatting.
Cool. Thank you so much. We will see you guys again. Bye, everybody.